Get ready. Go. Get ready to rock. Race of Champions. Get ready. Go. Race of Champions. Get ready to rock. Race of Champions. Get ready. Go. rock. Race of Champions. Get ready to rock. Race of Champions. Rock. Get ready. Go. Rock. Race of Champions. Get ready to rock. Race of Champions. Rock.
Well, hello and welcome to the Race of Champions Virtual 2020. My name's Neil Cole and it's my pleasure to guide you over the next few hours of esports action. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're safe and well, and please tell your friends to join the online party. It's been a long time since Race of Champions Mexico, where we witnessed epic racing in the Foro Sol. Much has changed in the world since then, so let's consider tonight's event the grand finale to the race-at-home esports boom of the last 3 months. A chance for some of the greatest racing drivers and sim racers to hang out and race each other in the virtual version of classic, fast-paced, quick turnaround Race of Champions, the format in various vehicles and on different tracks. So what can you expect? Well, a lot. The traditional 16-driver head-to-head Race of Champions will decide our first ever virtual Champion of Champions. Then it's a full E-Rock and a Rock Nations Cup all this evening. And the Nations Cup has some extraordinary combos. Throw in some sim racers and E-Rock champions and banter from all the drivers, all gathered in one video call. We should be in for a fun ride. First, let's have a look at the format. We've got 4 groups of 4 drivers who will compete against each other in a round-robin format, leaving the best 2 to progress into the final knockout stages. The sim drivers and the legends will be grouped together, progressing through best of 3 knockout semi-finals and finals to crown a legend and sim expert winner. The 2 will then meet for a super final. The tracks, well, they're rock classics. Riyadh, London and Gran Canaria will play host to a mix of familiar machinery, the Rock Buddy, the Buggy, the KTM Crossbow, the Rallycross car and the Vool. And what a lineup of drivers we have for you. Works Mercedes driver and recent Formula E Race at Home Challenge winner Stoffel Vandoorne will join the 2 Le Mans virtual winners and the IMSA virtual champion. W Series virtual leader Beitske Visser joins IndyCar wunderkind Colton Herta, NASCAR Mexico Racing Championship leader Ruben Garcia Jr. and Formula E Real World Championship leader Antonio Felix da Costa. Rock fans will be familiar with names like Solberg, Prio, Christopherson, and remember Felipe Albuquerque winning Race of Champions 2010? It's great to have him back. Group D sees Haas F1 driver and 2012 Rock winner and recent sim racing convert Roman Grosjean take on Rock Mexico winner Benito Guerra, World RX champion Timmy Hansen, and DTM champion Rene Rast. I mean, that's a huge gathering of drivers before we even talk about Rock Nations Cup and the E-Rock. Now, just like in Race of Champions, the camaraderie is key, so I imagine the video call monitoring all of our drivers should be a lot of fun. We'll keep an eye on that. And remember, it'll be great to hear from you. So comment on the stream or contact on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the hashtag RockVirtual. Any questions you want us to ask any of these drivers, tell me and I'll do my best. Now, guiding us through all of the race action today is our commentator, Ben Cosenduras. And Ben, we seem to be underway already.
Well, there's Stoffel Vandoorne against Rafael Marcello in the first of our group matches. 4 drivers per group, only the top 2 will progress into the final. Stoffel in the black machine, Rafael Marcello in the white machine. Now, they'll go onto that finish arch twice, but it is actually only 1 lap in true Race of Champions style. If you unwrapped this track that does have a crossover crossover bridge, then it would be a complete circle. We'll have to work out also at this Riyadh venue what the kind of crossover time is. It's going to be close, though, for this very first finish to the line. Oh, it's very close, but it's Stoffel Vandoorne by 0.03 of a second, beating Rafael Marcello. And I reckon that is the start of what we're going to expect.
Yeah, so we got straight into the action. That was race 1 of, I think, Ben, 67 this evening. We're going to have a lot of racing and great to get the action over started straight away. Talk us through a little bit about the rules we can expect. We saw what the circuit's like at Riyadh. The race is over 1 full lap, correct? Yeah.
Always a bit confusing with Race of Champions because you kind of have to unfold the track to see that it's a real circular track. But effectively, 1 driver starts halfway round the lap and 1 driver starts at the start line if you were to unwrap it. So they will go under that arch twice. And that is the way that the races will work. Only 1 lap, though. We do have 3 different tracks, as you mentioned, Riyadh, Wembley and then the Gran Canaria track. Gran Canaria is a lot longer than Riyadh and Wembley, so we kind of keep that for the semi-finals and finals. And it's also slightly on dirt. Well, it is on dirt. It's a hell of a lot slippier and rougher than we're going to see in the stadiums. So with all of your friends from Rallycross, maybe they have a slight advantage, and there are plenty of them. But in terms of the groups, this A group has 4 champions in it.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch, and I can't wait to see how everyone copes with Gran Canaria, because of course that is an absolute classic from way back in the beginnings, the roots of this format, Race of Champions. Race 2 about to get off the line.
Off we go then. So Bruno Spengler on the left-hand side. It's Louis Delatraz on the right, although we're showing Rafael Marcello there, so ignore that person who looks like he's fallen asleep. Rafael Marcello just finishing his race. Going to have to keep a note, Neil, of who's won what. I forgot to just a second ago, but it's going to be very important. Bruno Spengler taking it very easy in this rock buggy or rock car, depending on the era. They'll use this. No, they won't use this a bit later on. They tried to use this on the dirt track, but it was a bit too tricky. So Spengler is well ahead. There's Louis Delatraz. Spengler, the IMSA virtual champion. Delatraz has won the SRO championship and he won Le Mans. So both of these guys incredibly good, incredibly competitive. Let's see how this race ends up. Delatraz very careful coming out of that last turn, and it does look like Spengler in the white car on the inside is going to take this one easily. Yes, he does. 55.529 the time.
Yeah, almost a second's difference there. Now, the beauty of this quick format is, of course, they've had time to get used to the cars, the setups, and the 3 different circuits. But you've really got to deliver with that mix of precision and speed, because you've got, like we saw then, the races are so short that a single mistake will put you out of contention.
Absolutely. It's nuts. Classic Race of Champions. And on the virtual edition, as we found a couple of months ago when we did the invitational for the sim races, because you don't have to drive the car back to the pits, jump out of one car, jump into the next, it's really fast turnaround. And so we are going to be seeing these races pretty much every minute, banging out, another one. Here we go. This is the first race of Group B. Karissa on the left-hand side, Antonio Costa on the right-hand side, both BMW drivers. Karissa is leading the W Series league at the moment, and looks like she is in the black machine with Antonio Costa in the white machine. Now, Costa is quite good in sim racing, but didn't show particularly well in Formula E, Neil.
Yeah, I think he didn't quite have the luck his way the first few rounds, and then it was for him, I think, to a certain extent, it was a bit of fun, waiting for the real season to get back underway again.
And I think he just had a quick spin there on his first half a lap, so 1.2 back from Karissa. They only have 3 races, so they need to make these count in the group stages. And if they do make a mistake, like we saw from Antonio just then, unless Karissa makes a mistake, here is that... oh no, hang on a second. Is he well ahead? It's so very hard in Race of Champions to work out exactly who's ahead and behind.
But that was...
and apparently I must be behind as well.
Yeah, so Karissa, a good result, but it looked like there were a little bit of bouncing off the wall. So talk us through a little bit about what the race stewards are looking for here. Jump start is immediate disqualification, and any other rules we need to know as we watch these fast races?
You may remember that jump start is elimination. The car explodes and disappears in a puff of smoke. So no chance of...
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, no, it does. It really does. So the other thing is, if you do use the walls too much, then there is a 10-second penalty if you try and lean on them for your advantage. So watch out for that. And apologies if I am a little bit behind on my dodgy internet connection in France. And do take over, Neil, because I'm sure your internet connection in London is way better than the mountains. But if you do see that I'm lagging behind. And yeah, pretty much that's it in terms of rules. There's not a lot more that can go wrong and right. There's no contact. There's no ability to have contact. So that eliminates lots of naughty driving.
And any of these drivers who are used to like regular sim races, now obviously there's a massive difference between people who use a sim to prepare for their real racing and people who actively compete and put in tens of hours a week competing online, practicing online. They're not allowed to adjust the setups on these individual cars. Is that correct? Because that's a thing that we do a lot when we race online.
Yeah, classic race of champions, really. The drivers turn up at every track that we go to around the world, and the cars are fixed setup, so they have no chance of fiddling around with them. I think they might. No, they can't even change the brake bias. So we mirror that in this virtual world. They cannot change the setups. They are fixed setups. They can't even change the traction control or ABS or TC. Everything is set. Everything is standard for everybody. And I think that basically creates a level playing field.
Well, it literally is a level playing field apart from the crossover bridge, which they all have to take once during each race. So we're moving on. We are currently in, and just talk us a little bit about the quality of drivers we've got here. Like Group B, we've just seen Beitska versus Antonio Felix da Costa, who I'm just trying to think if they wouldn't have crossed paths in World Series by Renault 3.5, or would they? They might have been similar era, certainly in the same paddock in Formula Renault back in the mid-teens. But lots of different disciplines, but people certainly very much at the top of their game.
Yeah, so at the moment we're seeing the sim drivers, the guys who are very much at the top of their game in the virtual world, even though they are also at the top of the game in the real world as well. And then as we go a bit later on into this group stages, groups C and D, as you mentioned earlier, they are our legends. So they're people that we know very well from Race of Champions and have been improving in the sim world because there's been so much to do. The likes of Andy Prio we saw at Le Mans, we saw in the race as well, doing very well. Peter Solberg. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of the guys who don't do so much, someone like Johan Kristoffersen, haven't seen a lot of sim racing from him, if he's managed to put in enough practice and how he gets on. So those legendary races, the thing is, we only really released this Riyadh track to the drivers 2 days ago. So nobody's had a chance to do that much racing.
And a word about the tracks as well, because it's been a while since we've raced Race of Champions at Gran Canaria. And this is a longer circuit, more reminiscent, if you think about recent years, to Barbados, in as much as it's longer. It's not a straightforward, it's in a stadium loop around itself. So what's interesting about this is that it's a chance for the people who do have gravel skills to show them. But let's get back to racing in Riyadh.
Yeah, so now we move on to groups C and D. They're in the KTM, just so you guys can visualize the different groups. Not quite sure what the graphic says below and whether we actually have a result here or not. But looks as though Solberg, I don't know what's going on there, who's won or not. I'm sure our guys in the org channel will tell us, but they still seem to be racing. So that was half a lap, and presumably that's just a bit of a confusing time there on Solberg. We're on Solberg now, so we can visually see that he's going to beat Andy Prio here. Bing! Prio second. It's 51-2 for Solberg. Petter racing a bit later on with his son.
Yeah, both of them will be, in fact. Andy and Petter will have Oliver and Seb alongside them.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the great thing about the Race of Champions, it's a family affair, and today literally a family affair. So I think we had to skip a race, which was Herta versus Garcia Jr. from Group B. So now we should be going on to another race from Group D, I would imagine, or Group C, because we've got a couple of really big names in motorsport world. I mean, really big. Kristoffersen and Albuquerque. They're big names.
They need 2 lines on our running order. They're that big. A bit like my name, I suppose. You're very lucky, aren't you, Neil Cole, to have like literally 8 letters in your name. Some of us aren't so lucky.
Yeah, it can be. The problem is I end up getting called Ian a lot, or Nick. That's the problem with having a short name. Anyway, enough about us. Let's bring in the big names.
As you can see, they're slightly falling off our graphic. Johan Kristoffersen, Philippe Albuquerque. Albuquerque's done a lot of practice in this. We've seen him practicing over the last couple of days. Not seen a lot from Johan, so let's see how he gets on. We are off and underway in the KTM at Wembley. Hopefully the camera doesn't stay there. We do have different cameras for different cars. Right, so white car is Philippe Albuquerque. And don't these KTMs look good? He liked this car when he was testing it. Johan Kristoffersen in the orange machine. It's half a lap, and there's not a lot in it, but I can't remember if we've got much of a stagger at this track. So Kristoffersen half a second ahead of Albuquerque, but I reckon when it comes to the end of the race, Albuquerque may be fractionally ahead. There is a possibility, of course, that Kristoffersson has been practicing without being on our servers, and therefore is going to be a bit of a secret squirrel here. Either way, coming to the line, Kristoffersson in the orange.
He could have downloaded it and been practicing privately on Assetto Corsa. It is Kristoffersson. Wow.
I think he did. Kristoffersson wins a 51.52. Nice one. Excuse us while we note down our pieces of paper, everyone. It's very old-fashioned
to
keep up.
It's like I might as well.
I'll tell you what, Neil, that's a surprise to me.
A spotter out on the circuit. Yeah, and me, because Johan Kristoffersson entered one of the World Rallycross esports events, and he didn't enjoy it. I don't think he really got to grips with exactly the amount of practice that was required. And he is someone who is absolutely meticulous. I mean, he needs everything absolutely perfect to deliver the perfection that he regularly delivered in both Scandinavian touring cars and then consistently in World Rallycross when he was double champion.
There is all of our drivers. Some of them will be practicing. Others will be getting themselves into the server. This is pretty unusual for these drivers. Usually they have one or two races. I suppose Rallycross, they have a few more to jump in and out of, but not quite to this kind of level.
It's nice to have a look around there. I can see Timmy Hansen top right there in his sim rig, and sitting next to there's an empty sim next to him, which is where Kevin Hansen normally sits. There's Frederick Jonsson with the trophy that will be given out virtually later today. Next to him, Stoffel Van Dorn. A thumbs up there. Who was that? Okay, it was Ethan Dean. A nice thumbs up there. So yeah, that's a handful of our drivers, some of whom appear to be already practicing. But who's next up to race, Ben?
Well, this would be where we should have seen Romain Grosjean and René Rest, but unfortunately, Romain has been taken off for a family emergency. So we're hoping to see him back a bit later on. We wish him well, and I'm sure he's not watching, but he's got other things that are much more important. What's Philippe Albuquerque doing? You're looking at data? Very important, obviously. So I guess we're now moving on to the second of those races in Group D, which would be Guerra and Hansen. Where is Guerra and Hansen? Can we see them on there?
I can see Hansen top right. I can't see Benito, of course, the brilliant rally driver. In fact, they're in the lobby ready to go. He's got his gloves on. Benito means business.
So Benito Guerra, then the last race of champions, champion of champions that we had, held in the Foro Sol in Mexico. Again, not a man we've seen a lot of sim racing to be done. Hansen looking very, very determined on the right-hand side there. He is in the white machine. No, sorry. Timmy Hansen is in the orange machine. Guerra is in the white machine. You can tell by the little graphic there, just changing colour. Hansen. Let's see how neat and tidy. I mean, he was racing just a few moments ago in the World Rallycross online event. So having to jump disciplines totally.
Yeah, doing very well as well. In fact, if my maths is correct, he's just taken the lead in the World Rallycross Esports Series. So we get him at a very good time, very hot.
Timmy Hansen then round the final turn. Look to the inside to see where Benito Guerra is. He is nowhere, so this is going to be one to Timmy Hansen by the looks of things, and an easy win for the Rallycross champion. Where is Benito? We continue to wait. I can hear revving
like
as though
donuts.
He may... Yeah, I think he's doing donuts. Oh, there we go. Over the line and 10 seconds back.
Well, the secret of doing donuts is do it when the camera is on you so that everyone can see you doing them if you're going to showboat. Of course, it's great to have Benito back. As you say, the kind of reigning champion of champions. Impressed everyone last year when he won in Mexico. And in fact, the last physical motorsport event that I went to, possibly even you as well, was Rally Mexico, and Benito was there performing extremely well as well. So good to have him on board. I'm sure he'll want a better result in his next race in the round robin.
So now we go back to Group A and back to our real sim champions, Stoffel Van Dorn and Bruno Spengler. Those names are around the wrong way, but that's okay. So Bruno Spengler on the left-hand side, Van Dorn on the right-hand side. Revs are rising. And off we go into the first corner. Bruno is now on the outside lane, so in the white car, and Van Dorn in the black car on the inside. Now, I forgot who won the first races. Who had a win? Spengler had a win in the first race.
Stoffel and Bruno, they're both winners.
Right, so this could be a crucial matchup to see who wins the group. Half a lap in, a little bit of drifting there from Stoffel as he came round that final turn. Spengler just over half a second back, but as I say, there is a stagger because one half a lap is slightly short on the other half a lap. We always at Race of Champions try to design a track that doesn't have a stagger, but it's incredibly hard to get it bang on. And this does look like it's going to go Stoffel's way. A nice win for Stoffel Vandoorne.
Yeah, and a little bit of wall riding at the end from Bruno just to try and get the extra bit of pace around that final corner. But Stoffel is doing extremely well, and he showed how well he adapts to sim racing. You know, he was excellent throughout the Formula E Race at Home challenge, and you know, he's a brilliant driver in real life. Looking forward to seeing him get back racing again when Formula E starts up in just over a month's time, I believe, in August in Berlin.
Absolutely. And as part of the reason why he's here is because, of course, he won that Formula E Race at Home challenge, but was very competitive at Le Mans and very competitive on other platforms as well. Let's not forget that we are racing here on Assetto Corsa. The Formula E race and the Le Mans race was on R-Factor 2, and obviously iRacing very well known as well. Marcello and Delatraz, the two losers from our first round robin. These two teammates at Le Mans, and now they race head-to-head. Marcello actually with dual citizenship, so he could be a teammate for Louis Delatraz in Team Switzerland. But Marcello's been racing under an Italian license for the last couple of years. A bit like Bruno Spengler, who has a dual nationality as well. Let's see how he gets on. Lots of opposite lot going on from Rafael Marcello in this black car. Whether that's fast or not, let's see. It's a big old stagger. I think Delatraz is a bit far back to make this one happen, and Marcello could well take a victory, and that would be therefore one victory to him and Bruno Spengler, and two for Stoffel Vandoorne in this highly competitive group. Round the final turn, Louis Delatraz is being very, very neat, but it's just too slow. A little touch from Marcello on the wall there, but it's okay. He takes the victory. Delatraz is going to be bottom of this group by the looks of things, unless he can take a win against Stoffel a bit later on. And nice to see the reactions at the end of the race there.
Yeah, of course, the great thing about Race of Champions is that it's fun, and the drivers will always tell you they gather for fun. But the second they put their helmet on or virtually sit down in their sim and get started, it gets serious. No one wants to lose. No one wants to get knocked out in the early stages. So it's fun until it gets serious, and then it's fun again.
And that's Race of Champions through and through, isn't it? We know that when drivers come to the events, there's all kinds of stuff that happens on track, and there's a lot that happens off track, and a lot of enjoyment. Whether we were in Barbados, that was a really good memory for me, or Bangkok, the Shard. Remember a night up at the top of the Shard in London when we were there for Wembley? That was a long old journey from the Olympic Stadium, but it was great fun when we were there. You and I enjoyed that one immensely.
Definitely, it's got some great history, some great memories, and obviously the Race of Champions has done a lot of good for charity over the years, and in fact recently raised a lot of money with the sale of one of the rock buggies as driven by Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel for the FIA's Race at Home charity, which was excellent. So as I understand, I think we could hear from one of our drivers for the first time this evening, and it's someone who's got 2 wins in the bag so far. I think we should have Stoffel Vandoorne on the line. Stoffel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I can't hear you, Stoffel. I don't know if that's me.
Oh,
or
you can't hear me?
if you're muted. Maybe you've muted in the chat. Okay, Stoffel, first of all, you're the only person to have 2 wins so far in the Rock Virtual. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's on a completely different platform than I've been used to play with. So Assetto Corsa, and yeah, it's fun to race on a little circuit like this, where it's in a stadium. It's very tight with the buggy cars as well. So a lot of sliding around, very easy to make mistakes. But yeah, so far it's been going well.
And that's the crucial thing here, isn't it? It's the ability to push when you need to, but not over push because it's over so quickly. I mean, how can you possibly prepare compared to like Le Mans or the whole season of Formula E Race at Home Challenge for a 1 minute race?
It's very different, and it's easy to overdo it too much because you can see the other guy on track as well. He's on the opposite side, and you kind of know where he is, and you know if it's close, you need to push a little bit more. So it's easy to get carried away and to overdo it, but it's fun. I mean, this is why we do it. It's short, it's intense, and like you said, over in less than a minute.
Okay, well, Stoffel, keep on, and I'm sure I'll be speaking to you later in the program. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's doing well so far, Stoffel Vandoorne.
Absolutely, and we'll be moving in a few moments to our Group B races. Just to keep you updated, Colton Herta having a bit of an issue with his connection, so we're trying to get his races run a little bit later once he's sorted his connection. I mean, he was the last person into driver's briefing, and that's always a kind of a fishy one. Right, so we were on to Antonio Felix Costa and Ruben Garcia in Group B. We didn't see Garcia because he didn't race Herta, so it's the first time we've seen how he can get on. He's in the black machine and on the right-hand side. A bit of an iRacing specialist, especially going round and round in circles in the NASCAR iRacing Peak, I think it's called, Championship from Mexico. Also races NASCAR for real in Mexico. And so, you know, these guys are pretty good at sim racing, but it looks like Antonio Felix da Costa has the advantage. Not a huge advantage. 7/10 of an advantage equates to about 2/10 when we get over to the line. So watching Ruben, can he find a bit of pace? There's a lot of work going on the left-hand side, isn't there? A lot of opposite lock from Antonio Felix da Costa, really hustling that buggy. And now to the final turn. More momentum around the right outside, but it's shorter on the inside. And therefore, I think Felix da Costa is going to get it. Yes, just one win to him, but it was less than 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, extraordinary work. And what was lovely to see there with the wraparound screens of Antonio's rig is in those rock buggies, you can see the netting in the side. As sort of if you're looking to the side to see how you are matching up against your competitor, you've got the full roll cage netting experience, which must make it even more realistic when you're trying to get those tenths, hundredths of a second on your rival.
And of course, such a tricky track that you probably will be looking to the sides and using those screens to give you a bit more perception. When you're racing in a race with other cars, that's very important to be able to see where those other cars are. But I think on this one, it's more about just being able to turn your head enough to be able to spot those tight apexes.
Yeah, so this is a matchup, former teammates, Herta Solberg and Johan Kristoffersen.
Now, Peter Solberg beat Andy Prio. Kristoffersen beat Albuquerque. And there is Kristoffersen in the orange machine, trying to spot the other driver, Solberg. I'd say Solberg is ahead. They're going to be very close over the line, but remember that stagger, very important to note. 0.3 of a second is advantage Kristoffersen, or it's heavily advantaged Solberg. Solberg's been putting a lot of work into this, and with the help of his son as well, Oliver, the two of them really being able to match each other and see who is faster and who is slower. Kristoffersen neat and tidy, but I think this is going to go Solberg's way, and that will put Solberg at the top of the group. It's close, but it's Solberg.
Yeah, wow, that's one of the closest so far. Just over 0.06 of a second separating Johan Kristoffersen from his former teammate / team boss in World Rallycross. Very, very impressive.
Absolutely. But I have to say, I'm really impressed with what Kristoffersen is doing. He really is being incredibly on the pace. I was, as you say, Rallycross didn't really click with the dirt game, but certainly up with the best of them here.
Yeah, and don't forget, he was very good at Race of Champions in the quick format in Mexico last year, and Nations Cup winner with Tom Christensen. So he's no stranger to the quick jump in the car, change discipline, jump out of the car, and apply yourself to a really, really quick change of format.
And of course, at Race of Champions, you get very limited amount of time to practice every car. I think drivers get about 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum for every car. So experience counts at Race of Champions. And if you are a David Coulthard and have been there since the beginning, and obviously now with grey hair and very old, then you do have the experience to be able to know exactly what those cars do. Was that unfair?
I think experience is the kind way to put it. I think I'll be interested to see if DC is watching and what he would think of that. By the way, thank you very much for joining us. We're in the thick of the group stage of Rock Virtual. Wherever you're watching in the world, we welcome your comments, your questions, and we will get you up to speed with what's been happening so far, with the table and the results so far. So this is what's been happening with the Group A. As you can see, we spoke to Stoffel Vandoorne, and he's got 2 wins out of 2 races. At the moment, the person who's got some work to do is Delatraz.
Yeah, Delatraz also slow, though, with 56.4, so he needs to find 2 seconds, really, to be up and with the pace. Prio versus Albuquerque. Prio in the white car, Albuquerque in the orange machine. Andy has, or certainly his account, has been seriously practicing. They've some cameraman there has fallen off the bridge. Prio looking good. Not quite sure why he's already got a time on the board. A little timing glitch there. But this is now half a lap over the line. And Albuquerque is fractionally ahead, but this is a very, very close match. Now, neither of these won in their first races, so crucial to keep themselves in the hunt. The one that doesn't take a win could be going home or eliminated out of this competition. In fact, both of them we'll see in Nations Cup, so they won't be going home. They're at home anyway. We played that joke before. Albuquerque beats Prio.
Wow. So there we go. Felipe was the winner of that short race. So it's not looking good for Andy Prio at the moment. He's got 0 wins. But Group C is the Legends group, and it's living up to its name. Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting that a lot of the wins are coming from one lane, but they all will race in one lane each. So if there is a one lane that's faster than the other, we've always had this kind of issue in Race of Champions. I don't believe it. I think it's a psychological thing. But Albuquerque winning from the second lane there. So boo hiss. As did Hansen a bit earlier on.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that. But these things, it's over so quickly, it's hard to work out exactly if that's an issue or not. I think we have been joined by Colton Herta, who was having a problem earlier. So yes, here he is on the start line.
So Herta versus Garcia then. Waiting for those lights, 6 lights.
As you can see,
Red's
Colton
rise.
clearly likes to race in the dark. Otherwise, his webcam isn't working.
And he's in the white machine, and he's got all crossed up into the first corner. The back end breaking away from him and steers in to correct it. But already, I would say that's loss of time from Colton. Ruben Garcia, again, the back end stepping out, but they seem quite scared of allowing the car to slide. And it's a big thing in sim racing. You don't have the rear end connection that you would do in a real car. And so this buggy particularly likes to kind of sit on its rear end and understeer horribly. The way to get the best out of it is to slide it, but a really unnerving thing to do in the virtual world. And Garcia is definitely the better of the two here.
These machines regularly the favourites of drivers when they come to do Race of Champions for the first time. The ability to throw it around. That's a win for Ruben Garcia, I think, there.
Well, that was kind of expected. So that was a bit earlier on in our heats. I'm going to put a 1 beside Garcia. That should help us with Group B to be able to find out who's doing well and who's not doing well in Group B. And Colton Herta just didn't look particularly comfortable with that car moving around.
Yeah, I wonder. You said he was late into the driver's briefing. And I mean, where is he? I mean, it's probably early in the day wherever he is in the world.
Yeah, over in America. So he's one of our international. Most of our drivers are racing from Europe, I think, but he is one of our international compatriots. We've obviously got the Mexican drivers over in Mexico. But that does have an effect, of course, on their latency a little bit as to how far their connection has to travel across the world. It's milliseconds, but it all makes a slight difference.
Yeah, so we're still waiting to see what will happen when we get Romain Grosjean back into our groups. So what it means is back in the back end of this, we are juggling around the racing structure. So we're waiting to find out what the next race will be, because I think the next race would have been Romain Grosjean against René Rast. So let's have a look at our drivers as they are either preparing for a race or cooling down after a race. There we go. A few people with a bit of activity going on, people checking their phones. I wonder if anyone's actually watching or listening to the stream. Can you wave at the camera? There's Petter at the bottom waving at the camera. Hello, Petter. If you can wave at the stream if you're listening. There we go. Okay, so anything interesting there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Costa there as well.
Yeah.
And James Baldwin coming up a little bit later on, our E-Rock drivers. We're having a small competition for basically it's Take on Baldwin, I think we're going to rename the competition, because we've got 3 drivers that qualified through a hot lapping contest. And James, who of course was our champion from Rock Mexico. So he was invited, and he was actually invited with the champion from our first time that we did E-Rock. Which was back in Riyadh, where Enzo Benito won. But unfortunately, Enzo couldn't be with us. So Enzo was replaced by our 3rd place qualifier, Ethan Dean, who was about, but I think he's disappeared now. But we've got Niels Naujoks at the top there, who you may recognise from E-Rock because he raced at Mexico, but he's qualified again. Right, René Rast versus Timmy Hansen. Good start from Rast, I think, on the white car. Timmy Hansen on the white car on the right-hand side. Let's see if that corresponds when we get to the first turn. The reason why we're seeing times for René Rast is that he has already been practicing it in the server. So that time is a hangover from his practice. Over the line then, and... yeah, so Timmy Hansen... oh, here we go. Sometimes Assetto Corsa does strange things and decides not to follow the cars. It's like having going to China, where the cameramen sometimes are eating their baguettes. No, not baguettes. They're just eating food, their rice, and just don't follow the cars. If you've ever watched a race at Macau, for instance. Over the line, and that looks like a win to René Rast. A good win as well, 50.8. I think that's one of the fastest races we've ever had in the KTMs.
Well, it's a favourite, the crossbow. That was René Rast's first race. I'm not going mad. Was it? That was his first race. Okay, so he's stepped up against Timmy Hansen, who was very good in his first race. So that's good first blood for René, and it means it's going to be Benito Guerra's got some work to do. Even though he's pulled his gloves on, maybe it's time gloves off for Benito Guerra to get stuck in there in that group.
Right, the last of our races from Group A then. Delatraz versus Vandoorne. Delatraz needs a win, but Vandoorne has won 2 races so far, so it could be tricky. Delatraz is in the white machine, and Vandoorne is in the black machine. A little bit of understeer there from Vandoorne as he goes under the crossover. That might be okay. Inherently, this car has horrible understeer in it, unless you can get it to start to slide. And there, Delatraz just at the back end starting to step out, but he is a little behind. Just, 2 tenths behind, but he's on the outside. So that possibly is too far back to topple Stoffel. Yes. Thanks for the giggle, Neil. I'm glad you giggled. It makes me feel like I've got a friend. So coming to the line now, Stoffel on the outside line definitely has the advantage. It's shorter on the inside, but you've got more momentum on the outside. And Stoffel will win Group A, all 3 victories. Delatraz, no victories, and will be knocked out of the competition. And therefore, our next race is all important.
Yeah, amazing. Very consistent from the Van Dorn identity. He's an extraordinary driver, and the skills that he's showing on the Riyadh track obviously need to be transferred to Wembley and then hopefully Gran Canaria later. So very good. We've got our first person to progress out of the group stages, and that is Stoffel Van Dorn.
Yeah, so Stoffel can't be beaten now in that group stage because he's taken 3 victories. So between Marcello and Spengler, whoever wins that is basically going through as the runner-up in Group A. So we don't even need to really look at your graphics, even though they're fantastic and they look pretty. That's a simple one to work out. And it's not always simple here at Race of Champions.
So this is winner takes all. The winner of this continues in the competition. The other one stays at home where they already are.
A long hold on the lights. Bruno Spengler in the white car. Black car for Rafael Marcello on the outside line. And let's just see the body language of these cars. How much are they sliding the car around, allowing the rear end to do the steering? Marcello looks good, pitching it in there. Trying to get the weight transfer as well. Again, something so hard to feel in sim racing. Half a lap. Bruno Spengler on the outside line, but ahead. I think it could be Spengler's right now. It's so hard to work out. Just a reminder that when we get out of the group stages, we're going to move tracks. So we're going to go to Gran Canaria for the first time with the Rallycross car. So a brand new challenge for all these drivers. Marcello's on the outside, but Bruno Spengler is going to fight back here. It's going to be a very, very close finish. A big slide from Marcello, but he's done enough. And look at the smile on his face. Oh, Spengler's out.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy, does he, Bruno? That's a no-no for Bruno, but 2 wins for Raffaele mean that he will progress, which is he and Stoffel Van Dorn will be the people who qualify from Group A. Who will qualify from
straight
Group
into
B?
Straight into our next race, Bajska Visser versus Ruben Garcia. Visser has a victory. Garcia has a victory, so this is a very important matchup. In fact, we think that Garcia has 2 victories. I'm not sure we've seen him twice. There's Bajska in the white machine. We've lost one of the BMW Motorsport drivers. They're incredibly supportive of online racing, BMW Motorsport. And so sad to lose Bruno. Bajska is a BMW Junior. And we've got Antonio Felix da Costa, who's another BMW driver. And also a Team Redline driver.
Yeah, it's really interesting to talk to
easy.
Bajska the other day. She hadn't really done a huge amount of sim racing before the lockdown, but she's been competing and streaming on Twitch, and she's got very, very good.
But she loses out to Ruben Garcia by half a second there. So Garcia's 2 victories. That puts him in a very healthy position. Bajska's all not lost, though, because remember, we've got Colton Herta in that group. So she can still progress. But Garcia looking shoe-in.
Open. Yeah. After Stoffel dominated Group A, the other groups are a little bit more open at the moment. Let's see what
we are ploughing through these races.
These 2.
Felix da Costa versus Colton Herta. So this is the second of our Group B matches. Oh, and Colton Herta's made a big mistake there. Just caught the edge of the bridge. And that is going to put Antonio Felix da Costa in a sure victory, unless he does a very, very silly thing. Felix da Costa won against Garcia. So that would mean we'd have 2 victories for Garcia and 2 victories for Antonio Felix da Costa.
Now, I wonder if Antonio's got a
Bajska Visser,
spotter, because someone should tell him that he doesn't need to push. Because apart from setting a good time, all he needs to do is just nurse this car over the finish line, and he's got this in the bag.
To the line then, and Antonio Felix da Costa does take the victory. It goes now down to time for that group. So we will need to see the graphics to work out exactly what's happened in Group B. There's a bit of celebrations for Antonio Felix da Costa doing some donuts. Colton is going to be... Have we seen Colton's all of his races now? I'm trying to work out.
No, I think there should still be one more race. Yeah, I still think that's to be decided, that group. Again, if you're thanks for joining us. We're trying to do mental arithmetic and physical arithmetic while watching the races. We've got race control in our ears from time to time, but we're doing our best to keep up with the action, because the beauty of it, it's fast and furious, as are Felipe Albuquerque and Petter Solberg.
It's absolutely nuts right now. We are ploughing through these races. Solberg versus Albuquerque then. Solberg in the white machine with a victory to his name against Prio and a victory to his name against Christopherson. So if he can win this one, he's surefire going to go through. Albuquerque does have a victory against Prio though, so he'll be wanting to do something. And Solberg there, I think there was a slight error going around the final turn. And Felipe Albuquerque's just a bit hot into that first turn. He's hit the wall as well. Gets a bit of air over the crossover. That's what I love about the crossover, seeing supercars fly. Albuquerque on the outside line, and he's just going to be too far back, I think. This is going to be Solberg's again. 3 victories for Solberg.
Well, if Superman can fly, then why can't supercars? That's what I say. That's amazing, Petter Solberg. It's brilliant as well. I mean, I've known Petter since the days back in the WRC, back in the early noughties. And the way that he's adapted since officially retiring as a racing driver last year to the world of sim racing during lockdown has been amazing. Of course, Oliver, his son, has been a big influence on that. But it's brilliant to see just how good he is. And he's just completely nailed that by, at the moment, running away with Group C with some other legends alongside him.
So this is the other matchup in Group C, Prio versus Christopherson. Christopherson with 1 victory, Prio with no victories. And surprising considering the experience that he has. Let's see if he can snatch one from Christopherson. Albuquerque has 1 victory as well. Oh, and Christopherson must have jump-started. He's disappeared. You weren't joking. Prio's going to win this.
So if you jump the start, your car is eliminated in a very spectacular and dramatic way. So you were asking for Andy Prio to have a win, and he's got a win. In fact, you can see in the build of the Riyadh track that was actually Christopherson's car in the car changing area, having been reset there because he jumped the start. So a disaster for the Swedish double World Rallycross champion, handing a victory to Andy Prio.
And he won the Rock Nations Cup. Was it in Mexico or was it in Riyadh? I think it was in Riyadh with Tom Christensen. Prio comes across the line. A time is still important for Prio because each one of those guys in Group C has 1 win each now. So both Prio, Christopherson and Albuquerque will be decided on who went round that track the fastest rather than the wins they had. We know that Solberg has the winning the winning place, so we can put him into the knockout stage, but we still need to work out what is happening with the rest of that group. I don't think we're going to get Grosjean's races away. I think sadly Romain is still in hospital not far away from where I live, actually, because he's just across the lake in Geneva, and I'm just the other side of the lake in France. But sad that he's in hospital with his son. We wish your son very well, Romain. We hear that you're watching. So hello to Romain and son. And hopefully you can get back for the Nations Cup because there's some E-Rockers that would love to race with you. And we'd like to see you perform. So that does mean that there's 1 place available. It's an easier qualifying in Group D. Here is Group D, and it is Rast versus Guerra. Rast is in the orange car, Guerra is in the white machine. Lots of work going on the right-hand side from Benito Guerra. Now, René Rast has a victory to his name. Guerra hasn't been able to take a victory yet. So let's see how Rast gets on. Now, René Rast, a hugely busy man. He was actually racing at the Nürburgring yesterday on the Nordschleife, the DLS as it's now, no, the NLS as it's now called, rather than VLN it was called, and only got back and managed to do about an hour's worth of practice. So let's see how Rene gets on against Benito Guerra. Looks the right-hand side. Where is the Mexican? He's far behind. This is going to be a win to Rene Rast. So practice not needed for the German. He is through with 2 victories. Guerra comes across the line with no victories. The only other person in that group is Timmy Hansen, and Hansen will take 2 because he will get a bye from the Grosjean race.
Yeah, so good job by Rene Rast. Of course, also busy because his phone will have been ringing off the hook because he got the gig on Formula E as well. He's got the Audi seat for the last 6 races of the season. So Rene Rast, very busy man.
Not a man, I don't think, that we really saw much of when it comes to sim racing. I know that Audi ran a sim racing kind of internal championship on Gran Turismo Sport, but not a man that we've seen publicly racing, but obviously incredibly fast.
Beitske Visser here got her rig early doors from BMW, and she's put it to good use. And can she elbow her way out of Group B with a win here against Colton Herta?
Visser has a win to her name against Antonio Felix da Costa. Colton has been struggling. He's in the black machine this time. And again, lots of understeer and straight into the barriers. Poor old Colton Herta has not had fun in this. Well, he probably is having fun, but he's not having success. So this is going to take 2 victories here. That's going to put her in very good stead alongside Antonio Felix da Costa, who has 2 victories. And I think we may see those 2 BMW drivers go through from this group.
Well,
who's the other one in the group?
2 wins as well, so it may come down to time between Da Costa, Garcia Jr. and Visser.
Yes. Lots for our graphics department to work on. All in the space of 30 seconds. Visser across the line. 55.495 is her time. Don't think that was massively fast in comparison. But Colton Herta is 7 seconds back. And I think that means he is definitely one of the guys that we're going to say in a few moments goodbye to. Once we get our graphics sorted, we're going to go and knock them out of the Zoom call.
Thanks to Colton, though, for joining in. The thing is, clearly, I think, is there's some kind of a lag issue there. There's some kind of connection issue because he's a much better driver than he's had a chance to show off in these races. So thanks for joining us, Colton. But hopefully see you in a real-life Race of Champions sometime in the future. I wonder if we can
youngest
have a look
ever IndyCar winner.
Yeah, he is the wunderkind over there. So if we can have a look at the graphic, maybe we can see the group standings as they are right now, and see if we can make sense of what's been going on. So that's Group A. So Stoffel Vandoorne and Marcello will go through, and Spengler and Delatraz take no further part. So that's Group A. Group B, Garcia Jr. and Antonio Felix da Costa. So I thought Beitske Visser did have a second win. So I'm just trying to see.
Yes, but she's slower.
So she's okay. So 2 wins should be next to Beitske, but unfortunately, she will not progress out of the group stages. But Garcia Jr. and Felix da Costa will. Let's have a look at Group C. Well, Peter Solberg, the World Rally and double World Rally cross champion, living up to the legend's name by winning that group. Christopherson goes through second, but look how tight it was between those 3. The flags have gone a little bit wrong. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure they'll be adopted by those countries if they wanted to be, but the time is what was important. And look how close it was. 0.03 of a second between, or is it 0.03 of a second between Felipe's time and Johan's time, which puts Johan through. And Rene Rast and Timmy Hansen will progress from Group D. And sadly, we say goodbye for now to Benito Guerra, and hopefully see Romain Grosjean a bit later. Just if you're just joining us, the flags have gone a little bit wrong. The flag department are flagging. We need to try and get those flags sorted. But apart from that, I think the maths was correct. I mean, it corresponds with some of my maths. How about you, Ben?
All good.
My printer
so we
ran
need
out
to
of
kind
ink
of
this
explain what
afternoon,
happened next.
I've been writing it all down longhand brilliantly. What happens next? Yes, go ahead, Ben.
So we're going to be moving into what we're calling semi-finals, because we are grouping our sim experts and our legends separately. So those in Group A and B, we consider our sim experts or sim champions, and they're going to take on each other. So A and B, the winner of A and the runner-up of B, and vice versa. And then we're going to go into the legend
graphic form to help you explain it.
If that's possible.
There we go.
Bingo. So as you can see, Van Dorn will take on Felix da Costa in an all Formula E semi-final. And then Garcia and Marcello will be in the second of our semi-finals. And then those sim experts will have their own final. And then they will take on, do a super final where they'll take on our legends. So we're kind of grouping them off into two separate groups. But there is groups A and B, or the sim experts and sim champions. Let's take a look at the other side, legends and champions. Solberg versus Hansen. That's going to be a tasty rallycross number for you. And Rast Christofferson, the other of our semi-finals in our legends groups.
Yeah, so very tasty matchups there for the semi-finals, because of course this leads towards the final of this section, and then there's the super final. For those of you just joining us, how many races is that we've done so far, Ben? I've just thrown you under the bus there by asking you an impossible question. But I think it might be 43.
Well, no, not 24, 21.
Oh, no.
21.
21, okay. 21 races, thank you. So that means we've still got about 45 to go. So if you're just joining us, hello, welcome to Race of Champions Virtual, the first ever virtual Race of Champions. We can't go racing yet for real, so we're doing it at home. This is what we're considering the grand finale of the sim racing boom we've seen during the lockdown of the last 3 months. So thanks very much for joining us. I'm Neil Cole. This is Ben Constanduros, and we're your hosts for the evening. If you've got questions, you want to hashtag Rock Virtual or Rock Race of Champions Virtual, get in touch, ask us questions. But we've got some great drivers in the Zoom chat, and hopefully we'll be able to see them getting ready, or some of them might have been kicked off already.
Straight into the semi-finals at the Gran Canaria track, and there is no best of three. It's straight through here. These two not used to rallycross cars, not used to dirt. So it's a very different prospect. Antonio Felix da Costa in the white car, black car for Stoffel Van Dorn. Now, very, very different kind of format. This is the early days of Race of Champions, so you don't get to see so much side-by-side action. Although, actually, to be fair, it's not too bad at the first couple of corners, and the guys are doing a great job of climbing over the dunes.
Such a great circuit. Look how well rendered it is. That's not being shy, Antonio, there, about throwing the car around, and a little bit of whatever the opposite of ditch hooking is when you use the bank on the inside of a corner to guide it round.
Now, this must be a lot of fun for two guys that normally race in Formula E, to be able to throw a four-wheel drive rallycross light car around a dirt track. They're halfway through the lap, so as we've said already, much longer track than we have experienced in the stadium tracks. Very different discipline. And Van Dorn a little bit behind here on Antonio Felix da Costa. But neither of these drivers have any kind of experience, and probably grew up watching Race of Champions like I did. These guys are both similar ages to me. So the early days of Race of Champions for me were when when you saw Valentino Rossi and the Americans come over and race on dirt, and sometimes beat some of the established WRC stars.
Yeah,
so the line then, and it
Marcus
is going to
Grönholm
be
and Colin
Antonio
McLean.
Felix da Costa. Antonio Felix da Costa goes through and beats Stoffel Van Dorn, and look at the smile on the Portuguese face. He absolutely loved that.
But Stoffel's a good sport, and there's a big smile on his face as well. But yeah, very good driving there by Antonio Felix da Costa. Nice to see him doing well as you say, in a closed wheel rallycross car, four-wheel drive, something very different to what he'll be used to driving. And I'm sure, you've been across the servers, how much time they've had to actually practice in these cars on this track.
Ruben Garcia then races Rafael Marcello for the second of our semi-finals. Again, two drivers, very alien positions here. I don't think Marcello's ever driven a four-wheel drive car. Early days, a very, very fast GP2 start. And then when he didn't have the opportunity to progress into Formula One, he was a Ferrari Junior at one point, moving across to Mercedes and now basically Mercedes #1 GT3 star. Le Mans champion virtually. Ruben Garcia lagging quite far behind here. So we saw Garcia strong on the tarmac, but this is kind of part tarmac, part dirt. And Marcello there, right-hand side, looking very, very good. Determined face from Garcia on the left. Oh, Marcello's made a mistake. That's Marcello. Is it enough to allow Garcia to take victory? Not long left of this track now. Don't know how many mistakes we've seen from Ruben Garcia, but Marcello definitely is lagging behind. He has the inside line for the final turn, but it's not going to be enough, and it's all that it takes. Oh, look at the disappointment from Rafael's on the right-hand side. Garcia for Mexico goes through.
Wow, that was dramatic stuff. You're snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory there. It's a beautiful bit of driving though. And so again, for me, I'm just loving seeing this Gran Canaria track. And I think after this, I might have to go and download it and have a go myself, because the thought of throwing an RX Lights rallycross car around that circuit makes me feel very excited.
It gets that juice flowing that we all love from motorsport.
I've been competing a little bit in some rallycross online, and just the little bit I've been doing, and doing very badly, by the way, has taught me so much, and so much respect for people who put in the hours and hours required. And I'm doing it on a controller, not even got a sim rig, and I put in hours and hours and hours to sort of shave seconds off my times, and I'm still seconds behind the guys who are really good. So massive kudos to everyone who's any good on this stuff.
How's your thumbs? Have you got really strong thumbs now?
I've got excellent thumbs, Ben. Thank you very much. I've often been complimented on my thumbs. Thumbs up for that. Thumbs are fine.
I shall not take you on a thumb war then.
Race of Champions thumb wars might be the next step. From the next things we can do to bring people together when they're virtually separated by difficulties in the world.
We always come up with interesting concepts at Race of Champions. We started off with simply an individual Race of Champions. Then we went into Nations Cup, where we grouped two drivers of the same nation. Then we decided to do an auto test a few years. I think the first auto test was in Barbados. And now we go virtual, and we are racing for the first time with real drivers in the virtual world. We've done it in the sim racing world a few times before. When
you say auto test, do you mean the Rock Skills Challenge, Ben?
I couldn't remember the name, so yes, that's what I meant.
Apologies for the interruption. I just had a cat walk across my roof. Now, I don't know if that's an omen or not, but it happened. If you heard it or saw it, that's what just happened. I think we should be able to speak to one of our drivers who has been eliminated. Let's see if we've got a driver on the line. Stoffel, I told you I'd be speaking to you again, but it wasn't necessarily under these circumstances that I hoped. How was the Canarias track?
It was very different. I'm not a rally specialist, let's put it that way. But it was fun to change it up a little bit. I managed to win all the heats in the buggy and on the Riyadh track, which was good. And then I was driving against Antonio in the rally car, and he was really fast. So I guess my virtual Race of Championship ends here.
Now, we're very grateful that you joined us, and it was great to see how good you were in the group stages. Must have been nice to race against Antonio, and of course, you're now building up to be able to race against him for real very soon. How does it feel to know that you will be racing for real again soon?
Yeah, exactly. It's very cool. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time, and we've done a lot of virtual racing together. Same with Antonio. We've been racing together for quite a while in reality, but also now in the virtual races. So it'll be very nice to get back to the real track and live through those moments again.
Okay, Stoffel, thanks very much for being with us. Stay safe and good luck when racing starts again. Thanks, Stoffel. So yeah, that's one of our first big names out for the evening from the semi-final stage. Antonio Felix da Costa goes through, so we should have the next semi-finals coming up, and we'll be losing some more big names as we go along. We're shedding legends left, right, and centre.
But now we're getting into the drivers that know about rallycross cars, that know about four-wheel drive and dirt. We've got Solberg, we've got Hansen, we've got Kristoffersen. And am I right in Renault Rast has done a bit of four-wheel drive stuff as well in the past? I've got a feeling that he drove one of Ekstrom's cars, I think, at one point.
That rings a bell. We'll have to ask him if we can get him in the interview from the Zoom chat. We'll have to ask him because I'm trying to remember if I've thrown open the car door at the end of a rallycross race and asked him a question, and I'm not sure if I have.
Solberg versus Hansen then. Off we go. We are looking at Solberg in the white machine, Timmy Hansen in the black machine. We won't expect to see so... Go ahead. These two have had some epic battles
in rallycross over the years. And of course, they're lucky that they were separated on two different tracks this time, but they can't make contact.
Yeah, exactly. This is a bit like a rallycross race, a single lap rallycross race, but they're kind of being separated. So there's none of that leaning on each other like you see so often in WRX.
Although I think back in the early days of Race of Champions, we did see a few cars sort of accidentally make it into the other lane, but that wasn't by design.
Hansen hasn't made any big errors so far. Solberg 2.5 seconds back. And I know that Solberg did a lot of work and a lot of testing on this particular car and track combination a couple of nights ago. So he will be a little frustrated here. Interesting that he's on a black screen. I hope he hasn't been getting Oliver to do some of his dirty work here.
Well, you think he might have an apt going on?
He got an apt going on, yeah, exactly. Either way, it's not working for him right now because Solberg is slow in comparison to Timmy Hansen, and Hansen's going to win this by a country mile. Over the line,
3.5 seconds.
Oof.
Oh, there we go. There's Petter's webcam's working again.
Official.
And there's Kevin
and he just got
at the bottom. Kevin Hansen, younger brother of Timmy, high-fiving him as his victory, so he knows he progresses through to the final of this section of the Race of Champions Rock Virtual Grid 2020. And we'll be seeing Petter Solberg later anyway, because he is in the Virtual Rock Nations Cup. But we could see if we could get a word with him, or at least have a look at the drivers who we've got left in our video chat room. So some people still sticking around. Who have we got in? So there's Timmy's moved up to the top middle, having just secured his place in the semi-final. What are we calling it?
At the final.
Yeah.
Into the final.
So he's either going to face René Rast or Johan Kristoffersen in the final of this section. And the other final will be Antonio Felix da Costa against Garcia. So we shall see. Everyone else seems to be quite chilled. Lights Gavissa is chilled there on the right-hand side. Bottom right, who's that? Who's coming to clean the room up? That's hilarious.
I think that's Solberg, isn't it?
I think Antonio Felix da Costa is listening to
next...
some serious music bottom left there. Andy Priaulx is getting some more practice in. Are you still there, Ben?
Hi, Neil. I'm having a few lag issues here on my own.
Well, I'm just having a look at the running order and seeing what should be happening next. This should be our next semi-final, Rast Kristoffersen. In theory,
but I noticed that Kristoffersen's seat was empty.
Right, maybe that's why there's a delay. So let's have a little recap of what's happened so far and what we've still got to come. We've got obviously the next semi-final, then the finals, and then the E-Rock and the Nations Cup before we'll let any of you leave the stream this evening. Are you just typing a message? Oh, here we go.
So presumably we are halfway through this first lap.
But when we just saw the webcam of Johan, he wasn't actually driving, so I don't know what's happening here. So we're going to restart this race because I don't think both drivers were ready. And we could see that on the webcam. René Rast was dark, but Johan was not driving in his rig. So they need to restart this. But same rules apply. If you jump the start, you're immediately eliminated. And Johan knows that because he's done it once. Only his speed on the track in Riyadh is what saved him to get him through to this point now, because he only had one win, but luckily the rest of the Legends group, which was blitzed by Peter Solberg, they all had one win, and he went through because of his track time by hundredths of a second.
0.003 of a second over Felipe Albuquerque,
there we go.
Who I had shoe in for being into the knockout stages. And really didn't expect to see Kristoffersson progress. But I was obviously doing him a disservice. And now I think René Rast would be quivering in his boots to take on a rallycross and rally legend. Let's not forget that Johan Kristoffersson also does a lot of traditional rallying as well as rallycross, and drives for the pseudo Volkswagen Works team in WRC2 category.
And touring cars, just the small matter of a couple of seasons in World Touring Cars and previously Scandinavian Touring Car Champion. So, I mean, he's the sort of Swiss Army knife of racing drivers, really. He can do a bit of everything. And I think there was a time early in his career when he nearly made it through to single-seaters, but he's of a large build. He's tall, very, very tall, as I know from interviewing him, hilariously often having to stand on a box to speak to him. A little sort of behind the scenes reveal there for those of you watching. So he has that natural disadvantage of having the extra height, which means that to get the weight for racing cars was always difficult.
Right, we're underway. Johan Kristoffersson in the white machine, René Rast in the black machine. Good equal start from the both of them. You would expect Kristoffersson to be happy and comfortable, but yes, this is sim racing. This is not the real world. And Kristoffersson taking a huge liberty with that sand dune, which seems as though the car has enough grip to handle it. There was one year where this was completely flooded with horrible deluge of rain. They're both very tentative through there. Surprised actually that Kristoffersson isn't running a handbrake on his rig. It would be the kind of thing that he might have, having done rallying, whereas René Rast wouldn't. And Kristoffersson does have a slight advantage through the finish arch, just by 3.5 tenths though.
Johan really using every bit of the track he can. He knows exactly where to put the car in terms of what the track limits are and how far he can push them.
Now René looks a bit ahead to me. He looks like he might have found a slight advantage on this second half of his lap. It's going to be very, very close. This is certainly, for me, not a slam dunk unless we see mistakes. And René is ahead. Is he ahead enough over the line? He is. He beats Johan Kristoffersson at his own game.
Wow. Now that is an upset. So hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to René Rast just to see where he's pulled that from, because I can imagine if we could see the zoom face of the webcam of Johan Kristoffersson right now, I don't think he'd be very happy. So extraordinary from René Rast there.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have to fight Timmy Hansen now for the Legends final. So that's another very fast. We saw how good Timmy was in that semi-final just a few moments ago. So that is going to be a big battle. And this is now Antonio Felix da Costa versus Ruben Garcia. So this is the Sim Experts final first race.
Wow, so straight in with the action. So you think this is best of 3 for the final? Okay.
Now it should be best of 3 for the final, unless we hear anything differently from race control. So will be 1 win, and then we'll go again. We'll switch lanes and we'll go for a second time. And we'll find out who of our sim racing experts can be the champion. And then they will take on the Legends side as well. It's very, very close between the two of them. Antonio Costa with a little bit of understeer there through that hairpin. Again, perhaps on a different rig, he might have had a handbrake to get that rear end turning around. It's one of the few places on this circuit where you probably want it. It is quite fast and flowing. Oh, and he's over! Costa's had a huge crash, and he is going to lose this first heat. Ruben Garcia takes the victory. And that is it. It's going to be a single race. So no chance for Antonio Costa to come back from that, and Garcia is our champion.
Wow. So that was a surprise. So we didn't get a chance to get the message to the drivers. So Antonio Felix da Costa may have thought he had another chance, best of 3, but either way, he looked happy enough with his effort. Of course, a big incident in that race, and he did deliberately handbrake, turned over the line just to kind of showboat at the finish. But no good for Antonio Felix da Costa. Garcia is the champion of this side of the grid.
I would never have predicted that, especially from a guy who is so good at iRacing.
Yeah, so the sim and champion side of the timetable has been Legends and champion side, and sim extraordinary. It's really good. So who will he face? The next race will obviously not be best of 3 as well. Out of Hansen and Rast, who is he going to face?
Now, I believe this was scheduled to go to Riyadh, so a shorter track for effectively the rallycross side of the group. So that may play into the hands of René Rast a little bit. Here we are. Shorter track, shorter race. Timmy Hansen would have preferred to have been on the dirt of Gran Canaria. Well, we're watching him in the black machine, and he looks like he's got a huge advantage over René Rast at the moment.
Well, Timmy was a single-seat racer before he transferred to rallycross. So, karting and single-seating, he came up the traditional route. So this is his forte, even though he did then specialise in rallycross.
This is just one race. So the Legends winner will be crowned in just a few seconds' time. Around the outside, René Rast. The faster inside line is Timmy Hansen. It's going to be incredibly close. There was a slide. Oh, Hansen's taken it, and Rast donuts over the line. Hansen thinks he's lost, but he hasn't. He's won it.
Yeah, he definitely. Timmy definitely. Someone needs to tell Timmy that he's won because René Rast practically Terry Granted his way over the finish line there. So yeah, Timmy should be just getting the information now. He's put his cans back on, and he's being told in the background that he's actually won, which is news to him. So yeah,
well, there are drivers. A lot of them still practicing as well.
Yeah, and the numbers in that call are dwindling as we shed Legends, as we head towards the big super final, and then of course E-Rock, and then the Virtual Rock Nations Cup still to come in this live stream. Wow. Okay, so we have got a final. We've got a super final ready, and this will be best of 3, Ben.
Best of 3 around Gran Canaria. Oh, René Rast feels so bad for him. He had that in the bag, and you could just see the rear end sliding out. He didn't keep it. I think he probably hit the wall, which span him around. Mm-hmm. And that is a big shame for René. But Timmy Hansen is now going to be super happy because he's going to be against Ruben Garcia in a rallycross car on a mixed surface. So Timmy Hansen, who we've never seen at Race of Champions, although has been a champion and could be invited to a real Race of Champions in the future now. Well, this is his first crown, perhaps. Well, he's already got one. He's going to have a second one because we're into the super final.
Yeah, so he's already won his final. But yeah, he is the current and reigning world rallycross champion, and yet that championship, like many motorsport series, hasn't had a chance to start yet this year, so he hasn't been able to defend it. So that kicks off in August in Sweden at Timmy's home event. So this would be great if he could get the first proper trophy under his belt to round off the whole esports sim racing season.
And has he been the one that's been kind of the stronger of the brothers in the virtual world?
They're pretty evenly matched. Initially, I think Kevin was stronger and had put in more time on the sim, but between them, they've pulled each other up. Like today, Timmy was quicker at the event that took place virtually from Hurlius earlier this afternoon. So let's see if he's quicker than Garcia in Gran Canaria.
Garcia in the black machine. Sorry, Timmy Hansen in the black machine, Garcia in the white machine. Having to switch philosophy, switch discipline for Timmy Hansen. From tarmac, from precision around those stadium tracks to letting it all hang out, letting it slide with your four-wheel drive. Very neat through there. Trying to see if there's a handbrake used from either. Don't think there was, to be honest. But so far so good and nice and clean. Oh, Ruben Garcia just about holds on to it. There. 1.4 seconds the difference between Hansen and Garcia after that first half of a lap. A mistake from Garcia we saw. Hansen won't know that. It was behind him, and these banks are just a little bit too high to have visuals on the other car. So he will continue to push. This has been laser scanned, by the way. This track is laser scanned to perfection by the team that built all of these tracks bespokely for Assetto Corsa. Nobody in the world can get their hands on this track especially, except for the drivers that are competing today. This is it. There is no best of three. So Timmy Hansen is going to win. He's done it.
Look at that. He's very happy. There's Kevin Hansen behind him celebrating with him. Timmy Hansen is the virtual Race of Champions champion of champions. Hopefully we'll be able to get a word with him very soon. But wow, what an amazing effort from Timmy Hansen. He thought he was knocked out in the previous final, gets through to the super final, not sure if it's going to be best of three, gives it his all anyway. It's a rallycross car on a sort of mixed surface format, so it should suit him. And it does. Amazing effort.
And I just love the faces of these drivers. They're sitting, I don't think he's at home. He doesn't look like he's at home, but they're sitting in a place familiar to them. And yet the emotions are still the same as if they were in the real world.
Well, let's speak to Timmy Hansen. He should be on the line now. Timmy, are you there?
Yeah, hello.
Timmy, it's great to talk to you. Normally, I would be throwing the door open with you at the end of a race and sticking the microphone in. You're safely at home. I'm safely at home. But and there's your mum, Suzanne. Congratulations. You have won the first virtual Race of Champions.
Yeah, I mean, but it's crazy. And we do have the atmosphere here. Kevin can definitely celebrate, but it does feel like a surprise. I definitely had the advantage of home arena, do you say that, in the finals, with it being the rallycross car. But I practiced before the race, and I just made sure not to make any mistake and do some clean laps. And yeah, it got me all the way here. So it's such an honor. I mean, just to be invited to this race is a big dream of mine. I've been watching this race since I was a kid and watching all these great names compete here. Obviously, I would have liked to be there in person, but this year is as it is, and I take this any day. So this feels amazing.
Congratulations, and of course, you'll definitely be invited to come and take part in the real Race of Champions whenever it happens again. Tell us a little bit about your journey through the last 3 months of sim racing? Because it isn't something that came that naturally to you at the very start, is it?
No, it's always been Kevin been faster in any game, so like then I didn't get too far into it. Like he always beat me before, but then we couldn't start the race season, and all these virtual races started happening, and I got this sim from Sparko and started racing, and just been practicing. Treated this as I would have treated any other competition. So I have practiced a lot. Put in many hours here, but now it feels great that I did. And yeah, I mean, it is coming to the end of this virtual racing time now, and I'm gonna do an actual race next weekend. I'm extremely excited to go back to real world racing. And to sign up like this is fantastic. I do have one race in the WRX esports left, but no, fantastic end to this season.
Well, imagine me physically handing over a trophy to you right now, Timmy. Imagine some champagne. But congratulations, you are the champion of Race of Champions Virtual 2020, and all the best when racing starts again. But don't go anywhere, because you're racing later in the Nations Cup as well.
Yeah, the day isn't over yet. So I did the WRX esports and this, and yeah, still got some more races to come. So yeah, no, it's not over yet. I have plenty of Red Bull, so I'm gonna stick to that.
Okay, thanks, Timmy. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Very happy,
Good
Timmy
plug.
Hansen there. The sponsors, they'll be very happy with that. But yeah, he'll be joining us later for the Nations Cup.
Yes, so we take a pause from our real drivers and we move into the sim world where these guys make it their trade to be as best as they can in all kinds of sim racing. It's not like they've had the chance to practice either. It's time for the EROC World Final for 2020.
Well, let's get ready for that. So yeah, what's going to happen now, Ben? We've got the EROC guys. Talk us through what's happening on track and where we are.
Yeah, so Ethan Dean qualified as the third fastest in a hot lap contest. He did 1,500 laps to get into this position to take on James Baldwin. Baldwin himself, a champion in EROC in Mexico last time out, and very much what the man that every single one of these drivers wants to be. Ethan Dean was thousandths of a second out off the top two, thought he wasn't going to make it, and then unfortunately Enzo Benito wasn't able to join us, and so Ethan took his position. We're watching James Baldwin though, and Baldwin is boshing this. We're in the Vool as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen the Vool so far this evening, and we're back in Riyadh. We'll be at the London Stadium later, the one based on Wembley. But for now, this is all Riyadh.
Over the line, and it's going to be Baldwin's. Very different hot lapping to racing against each other, and Ethan gives James Baldwin a little round of applause. I don't know how much preparation James Baldwin has done on this, but, you know, he's obviously still got it.
Looks like he doesn't need it. He's so chill, isn't he? He's. I remember the first time we did EROC, and he was very good. And then when we did it based at Veloce, he was very good again. So he's quite a talent, isn't he? And he's really risen through the ranks since we started our EROC a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. He qualified actually into Race of Champions. He won the invitational event, which got him into the world final in Mexico. That was one of his first big titles, and since then he's now world's fastest gamer 2 champion as well. He's won various other things. He's part of the Veloce team, and he is going real racing thanks to his World's Fastest Gamer 2 victory. So he'll join Jenson Button's team in the World GT Challenge, I think it's now called.
Now, you and I have always given kudos to sim racers as a different discipline, as a discipline in its own right, alongside motorsport. But what's been interesting over these last 3 months of lockdown is just to see how the two worlds have merged more than ever before. Like, this has really brought together real racing drivers getting down to the times of sim racers, and sim racers really making bonds in, Discord chats and groups and races with real racing drivers, networking and be able to work their way into the real world racing. So one of the byproducts of the last 3 months is inevitably going to be, we're going to see a much more of a blend with virtual racing, and going forward, probably more virtual racing than we're used to, which involves real pro racing drivers.
Absolutely. And the winner of this little round robin event, everyone races everybody in these 4 sim drivers, will go on and take part in the virtual Nations Cup, and will partner a driver. If they're German, they'll partner Renault Rast. Good teammate to have. And I don't know who they're partnering if they are British, because Ethan Dean and James Baldwin are both British. So it was supposed to be Romain Grosjean in an all-star team, but if Grosjean doesn't make it, then somebody needs to decide who their teammate's going to be. I'm sure they'll have certain preferences for drivers that have performed well in the individual that we've just seen.
Yeah, so we should have the next matchup in E-Rock for this round robin, getting ready on the line at Riyadh very soon. And just talk a little bit about the journey that some of these drivers, like you said, Enzo Bonito should have been here. He had other commitments, very disappointing. And I know some of the other drivers were disappointed that they couldn't get to race against Bonito. So the kudos that these guys have rubs off on people that are trying to be where they are.
Absolutely. Nils Naujoks versus Arthur Camara. Now, this is very interesting because Nils is the Red Bull esports manager. As you can see, he's wearing his Red Bull top, which is co-managed by G2 Esports, and these two race as teammates at G2 Esports. So they're both very, very fast. Nils Naujoks we saw at the Race of Champions back in Mexico. He was actually our wild card. So has experienced the event for real. And Arthur Camara, an incredibly fast driver on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Camara in the orange machine, I think, has the slight advantage, but it is only going to be slight. And watch the technique as they go through the final turn if they're on the inside. So watching Niels now, I think they use a little bit of handbrake, which is very unusual in the Vull. It is going to be close, but I think maybe Naujoks is going to get this. He does.
Wow, that was very close.
52-0 for Naujoks.
Yeah. Impressive stuff. So this stage here, it's not knockout. They've still got a chance. If they lose a race, they've still got one chance to get through. Is that explained? Because we've not seen this section of the grid formatted in a picture. You know how my brain works, Ben. I like to see it on a screen and then I understand it. So you try and talk us through how these guys are matching up against each other.
Yeah, so this is just a group stage. Everyone races everyone, and the most wins. There will be no knockout phase. There will simply be the best one goes through.
And we've now seen everyone once. So now they will start to mix up the group. Okay, good. And thanks, Ben. Now I understand.
Hopefully James Baldwin understands. I think you're about to chat to him.
I'm not sure if we are. I think we've got Nils, actually, which is a name that I often get mistaken for when I go to Scandinavian countries. Nils, are you there? No, we do not have an interview, unfortunately.
Let's carry on racing then.
It's technical. Let's get another race on the start line at the Riyadh circuit in Saudi Arabia. Apparently the sim racers haven't necessarily got their phones with microphone capacity for an interview. So let's have a look. This will help me. This is how the standings look at the moment in our E-Rock bubble. Or not. There we go. Well, we have had So the data hasn't updated itself yet, but so we should have a win there for Nils. Okay, so I'm just writing this down.
One win for Niels, one win for James Baldwin. Niels is German, James Baldwin is English, Ethan Dean is English, and Arthur Camara is German. It was weird, actually, because out of thousands of drivers that took part to try and get into EROC Mexico last year, we ended up with one German and 3 Brits. Of all of the different countries we could have had around the world, and we had plenty of I think we had like 40 different countries that entered that competition. We ended up with Brits and Germans, and the same again here.
And Ben, just give us a sense of how some of these people, how many people competed online to have a chance to race in this EROC bubble part of the show this evening, because it was an open qualifying.
Open qualifier, as many laps as you wanted to do around Wembley, and as I say, 1,500 of laps from Ethan Dean to get himself 3rd spot. It was a good battle all the way through. These sim drivers love a hot lap contest. And so with Nils having a victory, let's see, he should, in theory, be favourite for this one. And he is in the orange car. Interesting line there. They take
a big cut, yeah.
Yeah, rallycross style in a Vule. Look at how Nils rotates the car there. I'm pretty sure he's got a handbrake attached to the Vule to get that thing to turn. And I wonder whether some of the pro drivers will be looking at that and thinking maybe we can do that at Wembley when it comes to the second half of the Nations Cup, where they'll be driving the Vule, which is inherently a bit of an understeery car. Ethan Dean then in the white machine. He's going to be a little bit behind here. Nils Naujok's understeering a little bit, but comes to the line and takes his second victory. Ethan Dean again, 1.4 seconds off the pace. And as I say, in a hot lap contest where you can blat out the laps, lap after lap, at home with no pressure, you can do one lap. But when you're in a race environment like this, the winner goes through. It's a different kind of pace. They were doing 49s, I think, at Wembley, which you definitely couldn't recreate when it comes to the real world.
Or if you're not a sim racer who can put in that amount of time on a sim.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show that, Nils, that's why he's a pro at this. He's so good under pressure, but a very good effort there from Ethan as well. So looking like Ethan unlikely to progress. Baldwin has now got a chance to match Nils on 2 wins. So I'm presuming that's what we will have next is Camara Baldwin. Someone put a question mark in my teleprompter. I don't have a teleprompter.
Yeah, Baldwin versus Camara should be the next one. And Arthur Camara has won a lot of races on Assetto Corsa Competizione. He's been a bit of a star of the SRO esports competition that's been running on that platform. Baldwin, not so much of a star on that platform. In fact, he could have raced because he was an SRO driver this season, but chose not to. And don't really know what he's been doing over this lockdown period. Lots of streaming with Veloce kind of heavily pressure on creating YouTube channels and things like that. So Arthur Camara in the white machine, Baldwin on the orange.
Camara was
Looks
a little bit
cool,
wide under the crossover bridge there, almost hitting the wall on the outside of the corner, which may have slowed him down a bit. Yeah,
and that's put Baldwin ahead. Even though he's on the outside, that is more ahead, I think. Now we switched our attention to Arthur Camara. Can he fight back? He will have seen the crossover. He will know how much behind he is. And look how much lock he's using on the right-hand side there. And gets crossed up. Don't think he's going to do enough here for G2 Esports. It's going to be Baldwin who takes his second victory. And another 51-8 for Baldwin. So 2 wins.
And look how just cool and calm and collected James Baldwin is there. Just reaches over, changes the setting on his computer and carries on. So that, yeah, almost the way you might have predicted it in terms of the form coming into this, that you get a Baldwin and Naujok being the dominant forces here.
And remarkable that over, what has it been, a year since we were in Mexico? Over a year, I think, since we were in Mexico for the last Race of Champions and EROC World Final, that it's the same names that crop up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's because the cream rises to the top and Race of Champions scoops the cream. And turns
who's
into
going to use
cheese,
that for the
apparently.
next press release? Oh, cheese.
So, this is getting interesting. Are you just having a little bit of a yearning for cheese? Did you just have a Jones for cheese there, Ben? Oh, cheese. You really have surrendered to the French way of life, haven't you?
Yeah, cheese and bread rather than cheese and biscuits. That's a big adjustment.
Talk us through what's outside. If you were to look out now, you got the view of amazing mountains, and your scenery is pretty spectacular at the moment, Ben, isn't it?
I'm very lucky. Other than the fact that there's clouds and a thunderstorm around, which is meaning I can't see a thing. Yes, it normally is very pretty in the mountains in the ski resort of Leger. Very lucky to live here.
Very nice. Very good. I'm in South London, and I can
Although
see some
that's a
pigeons
fly that's
fighting.
landing on my arm.
That'll be all the cheese. So we're just waiting to see if we're going to have a
who's to be
graphic
next?
or a race. I think the next race should be Camera versus Dean. That's a reference for anyone who's been to a British cinema in their life. Go on, Ethan, pumping himself up.
Camera versus Dean. Camera with the white machine. To win the hunt. He lost to Niels Naujoks. He lost to James Baldwin. And we just took a little bit of time there to switch him from one server to the next. There is Arthur Camera around the outside. And he does... does have a big advantage, actually. Ethan Dean 1.2 back and perhaps on the less preferred first lap, or first half a lap, I should say. So this is definitely going to be Arthur Camera's, and may well be a bit of one of those needs to look at the times. But we have managed to save the best till last. Camera wins that one. 52 is slower than Baldwin's managed. Ethan Dean stuck in the 53s, but he's loving it anyway. He's
a nice,
loving it.
Gracious thumbs up there from Ethan Dean. Look, he's getting global coverage on an amazing stage, Race of Champions Virtual 2020, pulled together as the grand finale of all things sim racing during the last 3 months of racing at home. And he's got a chance to race on the stage, the same program as Stoffel Vandoorne, Petter Solberg, Andy Prio, all these big names, and he's racing with them. And the next race is already underway.
This is the crucial one. This is the crucial one. Baldwin, Naujoks. Whoever wins this goes through. Simple as that. We don't have to worry about numbers and times and things like that. They each have 2 victories. Can G2 Esports, Red Bull Esports topple Veloce Esports? A big, big clash of the titans in the sim racing world. And Naujoks, I think, has the advantage here. Perhaps when they were put in real cars in Mexico, Naujoks didn't have the same experience as Baldwin. This is why he wasn't able to progress. But in the virtual world, these two are very much the cream of the crop. They come side by side around the final turn. Who's it going to be across the line? Oh, it's so close. And Baldwin's got it by 6 hundredths of a second.
See, that just goes to show how closely matched they've been all the way through and why they were the dominant force in this E-Rock competition, because that's how close they are. That's how little separates these two.
Yeah, and Niels is going to be frustrated with that because he was so close. And yet again, James Baldwin's got him. Like happened in Rock Mexico, Baldwin is our champion. He's undefeated, would you believe, since Mexico a year and a half ago. He was beaten a few times in the sim races there. I think Sebastian Job took a couple of victories out of him. We had Brendan Lee in that championship as well. But Baldwin has nailed his colours to the mast. He can start jumping up and down like they did 15 months ago.
But explain now what that means for him, because he goes on to race now and really have to show his skills.
Well, I'd like to hear from one of our drivers, but I don't think they've got microphones, so it's a bit of a shame. The next challenge is for James Baldwin to take on Tibi Hansen. at Timmy Hansen's game around the Gran Canaria rallycross track. So there, I don't know what's going to happen.
I would put money. So, I don't know about you, but I would put some. I would say that the form would tell me that James Baldwin is clinical, but Timmy Hansen knows the machinery and the terrain. So if those two level each other out, then we could be very evenly matched. We need to hear from race control as to whether that's going to be best of 3 again, or if it's going to be a straight shootout. And also what we call the winner of this, because we've had the Race of Champions, the virtual Race of Champions, Timmy Hansen. We've got, this is the E-Rock. What's the actual title that we give James Baldwin or Timmy Hansen before we get to the Nations Cup? I'm running out of superlatives because we've had the final, the super final. This is the final, and we've got an E-Rock virtual champion.
We've got our E-Rock champion again, okay. James Baldwin. That's the easy bit. What happens between E-Rock and Real? Personally, I'm not quite sure what the word is for it, but it'll be entertainment is what we are looking forward to seeing. It also means James Baldwin is going to join us in the Nations Cup, and we will find out from somebody, hopefully will give us some information as to who he'll be driving with, because should be with Romain Grosjean, but we don't know whether Grosjean has got back from hospital yet.
So we are hearing from race control that it will be one heat, straight shootout between Hansen and Baldwin for this grand final. It's not best of 3. And just thank you again, just to recap, thank you very much for joining us. Wherever you're watching us from, this is the Race of Champions virtual, and the final between E-Rock and Real is about to begin, and it is in rallycross cars, and the track, in case you don't recognize it, is Gran Canaria.
6 lights are illuminated and we are racing. At Gran Canaria, we have sim racing expert James Baldwin and E-Rock champion and Timmy Hansen racing against him. Now, James Baldwin stepped into the real world in Rock, Mexico, and raced against some real world drivers in their world. Now Timmy Hansen jumps into Baldwin's world, albeit in a place that he's familiar with regards to off-road rallycross style in a 4-wheel drive rallycross light machine. Under the crossover, we're watching Timmy Hansen in the black car. Keep an eye on Baldwin in the bottom of the screen to see the work that he's doing at the wheel. It's got a Formula style wheel, and Baldwin 1.5 seconds back. So even though this is Timmy Hansen's game in terms of the conditions in the car, the sim racing element is playing into the hands of Baldwin. I can't imagine he's done that much in terms of off-road. There aren't that many options in terms of off-road racing in the sim racing world. You have dirt and you have WRX, and there are a couple of mods in Assetto Corsa, but not a huge amount. But Baldwin does look like he's got the advantage here. As Neil said, clinical, clean, not too much siders, not too much slidey, and he comes towards the line, and Baldwin takes the victory and punches the air. Fair play from Timmy Hansen to be 2 seconds behind, but this was very much Baldwin's platform.
Yeah, so there you go, and you could see the look on Timmy's face. He got taught a little bit of a lesson there by someone whose milieu is the bytes and the pixels and the physics of a game rather than, purely real-world skill. So congratulations to James Baldwin. I wonder if we're going to be able to speak to him as the winner of our real versus virtual rock final. So I think we should be able to speak to James Baldwin. He's managed to find himself a means of talking to us. A long trumpet, perhaps a flugelhorn, or just a microphone to attach to his phone. We shall find out. James, congratulations. How are you? First of all, nice pad. Second of all, congratulations. You just beat the World Rallycross champion and Race of Champions virtual, Timmy Hansen, in the final. How does that feel?
That's not bad for a Sunday evening's work, is it? But no, really good. That adaptation from the Vol into the Rallycross, my brain was going off on one, man. I trying to get all the settings right and everything. But yeah, I just thought if I have a clean run, I should kind of have the edge. So I don't know if he made a mistake, but I couldn't see him, so I had no idea where he was. So I just kept on pushing the whole run, really. So
And give us a sense of how natural it was for you to race in the rallycross car on loose surface. How much of that kind of racing have you done in the past?
I've done no real life rally racing, but on the sim a fair amount. So I kind of understand how it works. But I mean, Timmy, don't get me wrong, is a much better rally driver. I just managed to hook it up on the sim. So it's a great event Race of Champions are putting on. I'm glad I could win it. Have I even won it? I don't even know.
Yes, you've basically won what is the Real Rock versus Virtual Challenge. So
sweet. Okay.
You're the winner. Yes.
Brilliant. That's great news.
You're like
Thank
me.
you.
You need to see it on screen, and then you'll know it's true.
Yeah.
But you are. I can officially tell you, if I could, I am miming handing you a trophy right now. Here is your trophy.
Oh, there you go. Right. Thank you.
Very good. That is great. But you do need to stick around, because also this means that you, as the winner, qualify for the Rock Nations Cup Virtual, which is coming up next. Hopefully you're still free and not going anywhere in the next hour.
I've actually got a date, so no, I'm joking, of course. It's a bit of a throwback actually to like Mexico last year, winning something online and then going into the Rock Nations Cup. C'est déjà vu. But
there you go.
I can't wait.
Well done. Congratulations, and get practicing, because we'll be coming to you again very soon. We don't know yet exactly who your teammate will be, but as soon as we do, someone will tell you.
Thank you. All right, Neil. See you later.
Well done, James. Thank you. So there we go. One happy
What
James
a lovely
Baldwin.
chap.
Yeah, and a talented racing driver as well. So, Ben, that brings two big parts of our competition to an end, and a big final part is about to kick off.
Yep, Timmy Hansen, the champion. James Baldwin, the champion. Now, which nation will be the champion? And, this is a little teaser for perhaps what's to come in the future. One sim driver with one real driver racing one nation. Sounds like a good idea, right? Maybe we should do it a bit more often.
I love the fact that when we do this, the sim becomes a nation for the Nations Cup. So, as we approach and take a reset for the Nations Cup in Race of Champions Virtual 2020, let's have a look back at what has been an incredible journey of 30 years of Race of Champions.
"30 years Race of Champions. What an amazing journey."
Since 1988, Race of Champions brings together some of the world's best drivers from all the major disciplines in motorsport.
This is a truly unique event. There's no other event in the world where we get to compete and share stories with drivers from other disciplines.
Drive. You're the GRC champion, man. You got this.
Great circuits, great stadiums, many fantastic locations all around the world.
It's always fun, there's always lots of action, and it's always a great show.
It's such a privilege to see all of these drivers coming from around the world, gathering in one place with a smile on their face for Race of Champions.
Wow, there we go. A lot of that. I was lucky enough to be there for. It gives me goosebumps every time I watch a little archive recap like that, because it's been a part of my life since 2004 was my first Race of Champions. So, and still an honor and a privilege to be part of. So we have got through our Race of Champions Virtual 2020, and Timmy Hansen has won that. James Baldwin has won the Real Rock versus Virtual. Now it's time for the Nations Cup Race of Champions Virtual 2020, and let's have a look at how this is going to pan out, Ben, because this is some extraordinary. We've got some new names who have been standing in the wings during the course of the evening, but the first race should be Andy Prio against Peter Solberg, representing their individual countries.
Representing their individual countries, representing their families, because both of these guys will share their teams with their sons. We're now at Wembley So a brand new track. You can see Seb Prio in the back of shot there, watching over his dad's shoulder. And Peter Solberg will have Ollie over his shoulder as well, sharing a sim this evening. Unfortunately, usually they both have their own, but unfortunately, one of theirs is not working properly. So who is going to take first blood here? Oh, spin! Prio's round! Oh, no. And he's beached. He's beached on the curb. You can see the rear wheel spinning. And that is going to be Solberg, who, well, actually, he's got to get past Prio first. Prio jumping out of the sim. Oh, dear. Frustration
so that's interesting.
Already.
Will Andy's car be a ghost that he can drive through, or will he have to actually tiptoe around it? And Andy's already got out of his seat to let Seb sit in there.
Yeah, I think it disappeared, didn't it, back to the pit. So Solberg takes victory number 1, and an easy one at that. And we see Sebastian Prio getting into the sim because he is straight away in our next race.
Yes, up against Timmy Hansen.
So just to clarify, we've got 3 different nations in each group and just 2 groups. So 6 nations in total, and just 2 groups, Group A and Group B. And the best, like we saw before, the best 2 go through.
Okay, and what are those nations? Let's remind ourselves. We've got Great Britain, Norway, Sweden, and Sim. Is that correct?
Yes, by the sounds of things. Great Britain, Norway, Sweden in Group A, and then, as you said, for Group B.
Okay, good.
So Kristoffersson and Hansen will represent Sweden, naturally. Norway being represented by the Solbergs, Prio representing GB in Group A. Group B, Portugal with Albuquerque and Felix da Costa. Mexico with Guerrera and Garcia, and then Baldwin in the All-Stars with somebody else who we have yet to be told.
Okay.
I don't know why it's taking so long to make a decision, but it'll be a nice surprise. Maybe James is picking a man out of a hat. Something like that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like everything that's going on at the moment, especially us, lots of this is happening very remotely. Lots of people having to work alone. So kudos to everyone working very hard on this.
Timmy Hansen versus Sebastian Prio now. So Seb into the rig, and he is in the white machine. Hearing that we may get Romain Grosjean, which would be fantastic to partner with James Baldwin in the All-Stars. Big air over the Wembley Bridge. A different layout, even though it's a kind of, stadium's a stadium. Amazing how we can wrap tarmac in different ways into these stadiums for different effects. I think officially this is the Wembley layout, although it does have a little bit of the Olympic Park layout that we had a few years ago, although that was a different style of Race of Champions where the drivers went actual head-to-head. Timmy Hansen in the orange car, though. I think he's going to take this one around the outside. Shorter for Sebastian Prio on the inside, but Prio is going to miss out by half a second. Close one, though.
Yeah, but that's 2 no's for Prio, which is a shame. So at least, equal, whatever the opposite of bragging rights, that it wasn't, not one of you let the side down. It was father and son, both failing to get a win in the first round. But continuing to impress Timmy Hansen, jumping into all these different machinery. Okay, so he was beaten by James Baldwin, but that's a sim versus real. That's the difference between doing it regularly as a sim racer. But Timmy is really on strong form today.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously lots of off-server practice. So we didn't see him much in Discord. We didn't see him much in the practice servers, but him and perhaps Kristoffersson as well being able to do that. We are hearing that Grosjean is going to be in the sim. So fantastic to have Romain with us, and massive kudos to him having had a trip to the hospital and back and to come and join us. So a massive thanks to Romain. Hopefully he doesn't... he enjoys himself and enjoys having James Baldwin, probably the fastest man in our Zoom call, as a teammate.
Yeah, and of course, it's always nice to have our returning champion of champions. You know, we've got a good handful today. Roman Grosjean, of course, was the 2012 Race of Champions, champion of champions. But here's another classic rallycross matchup.
As you said before, teammates at one point, Solberg, team boss at one point. I think they came to the Race of Champions when they were in that format. And it was a year, actually, we didn't see Solberg at the Race of Champions, that Kristoffersson was with us. We are following Solberg in the white machine. Very different characteristic, even from Riyadh, a different kind of circuit, different feel to this one. Here's Kristoffersson, and he's a 1.5 seconds back, so it's been a slow lap for Sweden and in the orange machine. And whilst Hansen has just got himself a victory for Sweden, I think Kristoffersson looks like he's really struggling with this narrow track and his KTM car. It's all very, very fiddly. One corner to go, but enough momentum around the outside for Solberg to take the victory by 3.5 tenths only. Neatness clearly then, Neil, is key around here.
Yeah, definitely. But we've seen 2 races of Petter Solberg so far. I have not seen Ollie get in the sim yet. I'm just trying to work out how they're sharing driving duties in terms of representing Norway in that sim rig.
Yeah, so each driver will get 2 races. And due to the fact we've only got 3 teams per group, you don't necessarily see the drives until later. So we'll see Ollie in the next matchup. So those are our 3 Group A races. We're going to turn our attention to the Group B races, the first 3 of those. And then we go back to 3 more Group A races where we'll see Ollie Solberg in those 2 races. So now into Group B. Antonio Felix da Costa and Benito Guerra. Felix da Costa a gnat's finger away from getting himself into a final in the individual. And if form plays out, you would expect to see this to be an easy win for the white machine, which is Antonio Felix da Costa for Portugal.
But don't forget Benito Guerra, the reigning Race of Champions, champion of champions after his success last year in Mexico. So that should give him a little bit of confidence. And of course, he would have driven the Vol there at the city where they are built. So a little bit more experience of this car than Antonio.
Yeah, absolutely. But Benito 2.3 back here. So a lot of work to do. And Antonio Felix da Costa looks like he's got this one in the bag as long as he is nice and safe. You do have the opportunity to see where the other car is, and if it's not around, then you know that you are a long way ahead. Coming to the line then, Felix da Costa is going to take the flag over the line. He wins by 1.7. Okay, so Benito got some time back in the second part of that race.
Yeah, but you could see from Benito's body language, the glove went up. He's clearly not happy with his own performance there. But Benito, we are super grateful that you are with us representing Mexico in the Race of Champions Virtual Nations Cup. So the next race should be our first chance to see Roman Grosjean. No, go ahead, Ben. Yes,
there's a race on. I'll make that point a little bit later. Roman Grosjean is on the left-hand side. Philippe Albuquerque on the right. Roman with no warm-up apart from a jog to the hospital and back. And now Philippe Albuquerque, he takes on. This is the All-Stars team Roman Grosjean is representing alongside James Baldwin.
So 2 former Race of Champions, champion of champions here up against each other.
And actually, you know what? Grosjean is doing well here. We saw Albuquerque very strong in the... Oh no, Grosjean spun. Grosjean's round. What a shame, because he was 6 tenths of a second up. Oh no. And he's struggling to do a 3-point turn in his Vol. So that's a win for Portugal. Philippe Albuquerque comes towards the line and he will take an easy win. But Grosjean has the pace, and that is a warning shot for his second race, that he could well do it when he races Garcia a little bit later on.
And, fair play to Romain. He's clearly had a traumatic last few hours. Luckily, everything seems to be okay. So to come in, sit down on his rig and join this for a bit of fun, thank you very much. Kudos to you, Romain, for continuing to honour your allegiance to Race of Champions as a fun event, despite, a difficult last few hours. Well done. Thank you.
And as a previous champion, there are some champions at Race of Champions that I get very impressed by because they come in, like Romain did, like Philippe Albuquerque did in 2010, like Benito Guerra did, and Johan Kristoffersson. They come in and are instantly on the pace. And it's so much more impressive than the guys who do it year on year. This is going to be a tricky one. Benito Guerra versus James Baldwin. Benito, hopefully, will do a bit of showboating for us because I think he'll be looking at James Baldwin and quivering. Baldwin in the orange car, Benito Guerra in the white machine. James really doesn't need to push it, no mistakes required. But look how much Benito's turning his head to be able to see the apex of the corners. Almost imperative to have a 3-screen setup. And actually, Benito's not doing too badly, keeping him honest.
Yeah, very good. Benito needs a good result here, just to so he comes away not with any sort of sense of disappointment, but understeery there.
Yeah, this Vool is really difficult to drive on the limit. It just understeers so much. And around this very fiddly circuit as well. Baldwin is going to go across the line of 53.8 for him. Guerra kisses the wall and finishes 3.1 seconds back. But that was kind of expected. Guerra shouldn't beat himself up about that one because he is racing one of the very best sim races in the world there.
Yeah, of course. And it's not necessarily he's used to setting off in the morning, doing 3 days of recce, setting off to tackle stages, in a rally car. This short format, if you lose a tenth through a few corners on a rally stage, you've got another 40k to make them up. So, kudos to Benito for pushing as hard as he does and doing as well as he does. So this is the first chance we have to see Oliver Solberg.
Oh, he's going to want to win this one, isn't he? Oliver Solberg versus Timmy Hansen. Big names in Scandinavian motorsport. Big names in the off-road scene. But here they are in the KTM on a stadium, fiddly, narrow track. Solberg, so expressionful when he's driving. He is in the white machine. Timmy Hansen in the orange machine.
And look at the full
and it's so different to the
Gran
Gran Canaria track.
Solberg's got to do to get this car, right, the KTM Crossbow, around this tight circuit.
Catching flies as well.
Very much like how his dad used to drive in rally car.
Timmy Hansen looks like he is behind here. Around the outside, Solberg goes, but it's shorter on the inside line. Hansen can see Solberg, but Solberg has done it. Oh!
Wow.
And there is Peder in the background. Another victory.
Close. Yeah, close. But you could see what that meant to both of them. There was a little bit of a, I don't want to say needle, but I think they both really wanted to win that for various reasons. There's rivalries with their families that go back for generations. That kind of, technically, Petter and Ollie live in Sweden. I think often Oliver competes under a Swedish flag. And, he was Rally X Nordic champion a couple of years ago. So those two rallying and rallycross families have got a lot of history together. So that meant a lot, as well as the chance to get valuable points on the board for the Rock Nations Cup Virtual 2020. Brilliant.
We're in Group A again. So that's the third victory for the Solbergs and Team Nordic. And with only Hansen's got a win for Sweden in this group. But we will now see Kristoffersson take on Prio. I'm not sure with my maths. We've got 2 more GB races, so there is still a chance for GB to qualify through if they win both. Andy versus Kristoffersson is the next one. Here it is, and then it'll be Sebastian versus Ollie Solberg in the final. 1 win for Sweden, 0 wins for Prios. Oh, but something wrong with Kristoffersson, maybe starting in the wrong gear. And whatever has happened there, Kristoffersson has a technical failure, and that is a disaster for the Swede. Prio is going to cruise home to a first victory.
Yeah, I wonder what's happened there. It's a real shame, and this is often the thing with the spirit of Race of Champions is if you set off in your car, when you do your outlap, normally if you notice there's a problem, then you have to flag it before you take the start line, and they will change the car. But of course, that's impossible leaving the lobby to get to the start line in the virtual racetrack. So it'll be interesting to find out what happened there, and if we will have to do a replay of this heat, or if not, it's bad luck for Johan. Andy Priaulx puts one on the board for the Prios.
53.8, that could be significant in terms of time when we come to this, because it's going to be Sweden versus GB. And I need to do some maths, but the next race is GB versus Norway. We think that Norway have already gone through. So I think Sebastian Priaulx wins and GB go through. If Ollie Solberg wins, then we have to go to time.
I'll tell you what, Ben, I'll let you do some maths. Let's see if we can speak to our good friend, Monsieur Romain Grosjean. Romain, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh, Romain, first of all, can we just say all of our thoughts were with you when we heard earlier. Is everything okay at home? Tell us the story of what happened.
Oh, man, it was just a kid's activity. He was walking without watching where he was going, and crashed into a wall. So we had to go to the hospital and get a few stitches. But it was very strong, very brave, and everyone is back to bed, so I could just join and enjoy a bit of time with you guys.
Okay, we really appreciate that, Roman. And give us a sense of how much this position that you're in now, this sim rig, has taken up your life for the last few months. You know, you're a family man, you're a racing driver, but I imagine you've been sitting in that seat quite a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, more than before, but not as much as many of the guys, the good sim racers. But it's been fun. You know, I was always looking at esports and created my own racing team, esport team, a couple of months ago, and we've been doing really good. And actually, I reached Fred and I say, "Look, guys, is the rock happening on virtual?" And he replied, "Yes, it is. Do you want to join?" And I say, "Of course, I want to join." And you know, I've got some great memories from coming a few times. I think I did it 3 times and winning it once. So really, I've had good fun, and then started practicing a little bit, not as much as I wanted. There were a few things going on this weekend, but I felt like the KTM and the buggy, which are the one that I know the best, were actually behaving very much as in real life. So I was like, okay, this is quite fun, and really, yeah, I've had a good time.
Good. Well, it's good to hear that they're an accurate rendering of the cars that you've known on these tracks before. So, Roman, we'll let you go because your teammate needs you to be on good form for the next race, James Baldwin. Thank you very much. Good luck in the rest of the championship.
Thank you very much.
So there we go, Romain Grosjean telling us that the rock cars feel very similar around these stadium circuits to their real-life counterparts.
That's what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to blur the virtual and the real when we set out building these tracks, building these cars, building this competition. And it's great to have an endorsement from an experienced driver. Let's not forget, many years in Formula One, but has driven all kinds of different cars in his career, and a rock champion. So great to have Roman with us, even if it is just for a little bit. Priaulx versus Solberg, the youngers. Seb Priaulx needs to win this.
It's the Generation Z battle, isn't it?
But Priaulx needs to win this, or at least have a very, very fast time and be faster than Timmy Hansen's win earlier on. That's the only way he's going to get through and get GB into the next round and knock out Team Sweden, which will be a big surprise and a big shame for Timmy Hansen that's done so well. But Ollie Solberg just is so strong. They've been running their own championship over lockdown, the Solbergs. And whilst the Priaulx have been doing a lot of sim racing, the Solbergs equally so. So great to have this family battle. We've tried to get a couple of other families involved to make this whole group a family battle, but because there's plenty of them if you think about it. But unfortunately, we were unable to find a third team.
Was Tom Blomqvist and Stig, but I don't think we'd get Stig in a sim.
Solberg does it. 0.9 of a second ahead of Priaulx. Is it Prio's time good enough to get him through, or will we see Team Sweden go through? We will wait for the graphics to confirm exactly the second team from Group A to go through, but we do know the winner of the group is the Solbergs.
Yeah, and very impressive there. Oliver Solberg, very happy with his victory.
And now we go into Group B. Oh, that's impressive.
The Invisible Man.
Ruben Garcia. I don't think that's Ruben Garcia. I think that obviously was a slight mistake, but that did look like a slip from Felipe Albuquerque. He has spun, and that is clearly going to give Mexico a victory. What a frustration for Felipe Albuquerque, because he was so fast. And he's just, him and Antonio Felix da Costa for Team Portugal, looking like a very strong lineup. But unfortunately, not only does that mean it won't be a good time, but it also means that he's probably not going to win this unless Ruben Garcia is makes a mistake. 4 seconds down.
Yeah, and a chance for Ruben to represent for Mexico in a way that has eluded Benito Guerra so far in the Nations Cup competition.
Yeah, sometimes you see that in Nations Cup. One driver holds the fort while the other driver does the losing. And Garcia, a 56.1 is a slow race. Although actually I'm maybe getting confused with the KTMs. Either way, Albuquerque 5 seconds back. And we will see in a few moments' time Antonio Felix da Costa in his last race for Portugal. Will he do enough to get them through?
Yeah, and it's good to see that everyone getting to grips with those Vauls. I mean, we saw them at Mexico City. They're a great piece of kit, those Vaul cars. Beautiful machine. Not the easiest car to drive fast in the way that they are so stiff that they don't turn at low speed. They're a much better high-speed car than fiddling around these tight circuits. And of course, in Mexico is one of the largest, least windy circuits that we've been to for a while because the Foro Sol offered us so much more space. Right, Portugal have 2 wins. One apiece for the 2 Portuguese representatives. Can Antonio Felix da Costa take a big scalp here in the white Vul? James Baldwin is in the orange Vul. And undisputed champion of E-Rock, 2 years on the trot now. He's got to do all of the running for Romain Grosjean. Although Grosjean will race in the last race, Ruben Garcia, so that should be an interesting matchup. Over the line, Baldwin is 2 seconds to the good over Antonio Felix da Costa. And Felix da Costa dipping his wheel into the barrier there, so a mistake 2. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to take a victory, but it doesn't mean that Portugal cannot continue and move forward. Slow, careful through these last turns. Baldwin does it with a 53.9. Felix da Costa 1.5 seconds back is still faster than what we just saw in the winning previous time. So it's still a chance for Portugal. Yeah, it's still open. And of course, what awaits them when they get out, whoever progresses to the next stage of the Nations Cup, it will be the rallycross cars in Gran Canaria. So they've got to make the most of this sort of neat and tidy, safe tarmac while they've got it, because they know that coming next is a little bit looser and a little bit more dirty. Just the way you like it, Neil. No word of a lie. You are a man of dirt and getting your hands dirty, getting yourselves out the stages, all of the fun stuff. One more race left. Before we get through to the deciding out of the groups and into the quarterfinals. Yeah, so Mexico have 2 wins. Portugal have 2 wins. And sim racers have 3 wins right now. So if Mexico win this next one, they go through. Portugal get eliminated. Garcia versus Grosjean. Grosjean doesn't need to win. James Baldwin... Oh, sorry. He does, because James Baldwin's only won 2, of course. So it's 2 apiece for the All-Stars team and 2 apiece for Mexico. And 2 apiece for Portugal. So one of these teams is going to win the group. The other one, it will go down to time.
And of course, if it is the All-Stars, then James Baldwin is definitely going to be the faster lap time. So Garcia
according
at
to my
1.8
maths, if
ahead
Mexico
of
win,
Grosjean.
they're all on 2 wins.
Yeah, right, okay.
So it would come down
Yes,
to time.
you're right. I got one of my little scribbles wrong on my piece of paper. Where is minute by minute when you need it? We have an amazing system. Ruben Garcia wins it. Grosjean 0.8 of a second back.
Okay.
What a shame for Romain.
that-
2 races and that's it.
I know. But that means that we have got
I know, he'll
like,
qualify.
2 wins apiece. Yeah, yeah.
Grosjean will definitely qualify because All Stars are definitely going to be the fastest group. So they're going to take the win. The second of that group, we'll have to wait and see. And we need to get those graphics up to see exactly what's happening because my
we need guidance.
brain after so many hours is like melted.
Just if you joining us, we are currently at race, I think 72, 75. Race 75 at the moment. That's where we are in this evening's proceedings.
Hearing that All Stars and Portugal have got through. So All Stars with the fastest time and Portugal second, which means Mexico are eliminated, sadly. Not fast enough. That's the only reason why they didn't get through. By 0.8 of a second.
Them's the breaks, close margins. So
now we go into
move on to the
knockout.
next phase. Okay. And this should be Gran Canaria in the Rallycross cars, am I right? Please tell me that it is, because I love that.
You are right. So Group A winner will take on Group B runner-up. So Group B runner-up is going to be Portugal, and Group A winner was Nordic. So the Solbergs versus Albuquerque and Costa. Driver 1 will take on driver 1. Driver 2 will take on driver 2. And then if there is a tie break, the winners of those 2 will take a final decisive race.
That sounds like a classic Race of Champions format. There we go. So let's bring it on. Portugal versus
Back to stuff
Norway.
that we can... a little bit easier to understand, the knockout stuff, isn't it?
But just to make the point I started to make earlier, like a lot of this stuff is happening remotely, people operating individually. So if there's a glitch with the timing or the graphics, we apologize for that. We're doing our very best to bring you the most entertaining races and the biggest names in tonight's Race of Champions Virtual. And there we have the remaining talent waiting for their turn. That's like the virtual lobby waiting to join the race. As we get ready for the next knockout stage of the Rock Nations Cup.
What a shame to lose the Prios from that. Very much a massive supporter, Andy, of Race of Champions over many, many years, and one of the first to say yes to this. So thank you so much for your commitment, Andy, and Sebastian. It's been great to follow the father and sons. As I was speaking a little bit earlier, the Solbergs, the Prios, the Montoyas, the Blancfisks, Colton Herta and his dad could have been also. We could have done a whole Race Nations Cup just with dads and lads. So there's another philosophy for the future.
Yeah, I like the idea. I guess it's good to see Johan Kristoffersen having a good old laugh there, middle sort of second row down in the middle, from the blue light of his computer, and Benito Guerra is clearly exchanging voice messages with someone, trying to find out if they are going to proceed. But we know that I think he's talking to Ruben Garcia, actually. You can see they're talking to each other to find out if they're out, and I'm afraid we can tell them that they are. Right, Oliver Solberg, if you're listening to me, can you hold your thumbs up to the screen and tell me that you're happy to do an interview? No. Okay, that's how we communicate with people now. We just use television to communicate. So Johan Kristoffersen adjusts his headset.
It's just a bit of delay.
Oh, okay, so he's going to come and sit down. That means we may be able to talk to Oliver and with his dad in the background while he gets ready. There we go. Oh, so straight through. It actually worked, Oliver. So first of all, hi, Oliver. Hi, Petter. Nice to see you guys, although it'll be nicer to see you in person. Good driving so far tonight.
Yeah, very good. I think Norway has the most wins, so it's not bad. A good night.
Very good night. What's it like compared to some of the other virtual racing you've been doing, Oliver? What's it like to do a race that's over in less than a minute?
Well, I've only done the rallies on my Solberg World Cup, so it's a bit longer stages and a bit longer rallies to keep concentration. So it was good practice to do these short sprints as well.
And Petter, I presume you can hear. If you come a little bit closer, let's get a word with you on the same microphone. You've been very busy in the Race All-Stars. Give us a sense of how that's been going for you, how much fun you've had in all the different formats and all the different circuits around the world.
Well, it's been great. You know, I did a little bit of dirt with Oliver, but it seems like I lost the rally feeling a little bit. I'm a little bit better on the circuit, but the Legends race, it's been absolutely fantastic with all the guys. A lot of good fun, and when you see the competitiveness with all this, well, I can say all the drivers, is incredible, and it's a reason for why they have been winners also. So it's great atmosphere. I did one Formula One race. I was not properly prepared for that one. It happened very quickly, but what did I get? 10?
10 or something.
Yeah, so it's not too bad actually. But this was really good. I'm a little bit disappointed because I embarrassed myself on the rally stage earlier, and Timmy did a fantastic drive. It was very impressive, but I was a little bit too chicken.
Well, maybe you've got too used to tarmac, Petter, with all your sim racing with the drafting around the ovals and Monte Carlo and Le Mans. Maybe a little bit too used to tarmac now.
I think it's been great. It's a different thing, and it's a different challenge again. So why not? These young guys can do the rallying now, and that's what Oliver loves. And well, he should be very appreciated and happy to be a part of this Racer Champion family. It's incredible what they have made for this everybody. When they're staying at home. So we are really appreciated to Frederick and all the team that makes this happen for everybody. So let's come through this night now, and let's have a good party later.
Okay, thanks, Petter. And Oliver, yes, great to have you, a new member of the Race of Champions family. And of course, nearly time to go real racing again. So good luck next week. So if you can log in, go back into the server, Oliver, because I think you're up shortly. So Petter, actually, it's Petter, I think. So the racing next, thank you very much. So this is live driver change, just like at Le Mans. And we shall get racing again. But thanks very much to the Solbergs, Team Norway in the Nations Cup Rock Virtual 2020. We'll leave them to their private moment. Ben, we've got you back on screen. I think you were just
Thanks for telling me, Neil.
The background of what's happening on the various race control groups that we are getting our information from. So lovely to see 2 generations of Solbergs welcomed into the Race of Champions family, and it is a family.
Yeah, it's really cool. Race of Champions is a family, and as you say, many years enjoying these very, very unique events, going over to strange different islands and countries to build a track and then race on it in a stadium. It's a bizarre concept when you really think about it. And then bringing 16 of the best drivers in the world together to have a bit of a party and to be very competitive as well. And it's no wonder there are friendships grown straight out of the Race of Champions over the last years. And I hope that we see those friendships develop also in the virtual world in the future. Although I do hope we go back to full metal racing for Race of Champions when we can, because of course most stadiums are still without spectators, and without spectators, Race of Champions is not the same.
Mm-hmm. I second that emotion. Okay, so hopefully we should be, if the Solbergs have managed to get themselves back into the server, depending on which server it is, because I think we're running 2 servers at the moment to get through this racing as quick as we are, we should be able to go racing again and progress to the finale of the Nations Cup.
Yeah, semi-finals. So both drivers will race, as we've said before, and then if we need a third decisive, we can have a third decisive, and to lots of those semi-finals and then into the finals at the Gran Canaria track, I think. Although we have allowed a flexibility in case of running massively behind time to be able to use a different setup of car and track to win some time back. But let's see how we go. Kind of just wait and see, I suppose. We'll soon know whether it's Riyadh, or Wembley, or Gran Canaria. It's Gran Canaria. Solberg versus James Baldwin. Oof, this is a big one.
Interesting as well that we heard Petter admitting that he made a mistake on this circuit in his heat earlier. So he'll have learned from that and want to make amends for that.
So this means that the Portuguese were faster than the All-Stars, which is very interesting. So James Baldwin not as fast in his heats than one of the Portuguese guys, to mean that they are runner-up in their group rather than winner of their group. But we saw how Baldwin was able to dispose of Timmy Hansen, and you have to say, it just looks so committed, doesn't it, from James Baldwin? The car just looks so rapid.
I wonder if there's damage on Petter's car, because he looks like he's driving almost like he's got a puncture, although we can't see that.
James Baldwin in the black car coming towards the last part of the circuit. Oh! Breathes a big sigh of relief and still manages to survive. But it was a big old mistake, and that is 1 to the All-Stars.
Well, if you
now,
can read
Oliver
Solberg,
takes
you'll
on
see that he
Roland
wasn't
Grosjean.
very happy. Yeah, so that's the thing, is they do have a chance to, this is the sort of best of 3, so they have a chance for the other teammate to either redeem or let the side down, really. So, yeah, Oliver Solberg has to get into that rig. Roman Grosjean's already in his rig, ready to take over for the All-Stars. But Norway versus All-Stars, it's first blood to the All-Stars.
Yep, absolutely. And this is the first of our semi-finals. The second, therefore, will be Portugal versus Sweden for the second of our semi-finals, which should be interesting, to be honest. But on a rallycross style event, perhaps advantage to Sweden with 2 rallycross stars, or dirt stars, if you like. Be interesting to see. But before we do that, we've got to get Ollie into the sim, get Petter out, jump into a server, get everybody else into that server, and then go racing. And so it's not an easy job. It's the thing about this is it's not like a normal race where you've got cars in one race for half an hour. We've got a different race, a different server every single minute.
Loving it. It's thanks very much for everyone sticking with us, watching this through to the end. Where we are now is we're in the semi-finals of the Nations Cup. If you've just joined us, where have you been? You've missed us already crowning the virtual champion of champions and the Real Rock versus virtual champion earlier, and now we are at the semi-final stage of the Nations Cup. This is taking place in the beautifully rendered brand new build for Assetto Corsa of Gran Canaria in Rallycross lights.
Grosjean versus Solberg. I've got a feeling this might go to a tie-break between Baldwin and Solberg. That would be interesting, actually. That would be interesting, because Solberg is faster than Hansen. Hansen on this particular surface, perhaps. And I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup. But firstly, Ollie Solberg has to survive this track. Definitely not something Grosjean is used to. Oh, there's a mistake from Romain Grosjean in the black car. hitting the banks. The banks you just can't really use to your advantage here. They are so slanted, you just kind of launch. So Solberg does a 47.2. Grosjean 2.8 seconds behind.
So barring disaster, we are definitely looking at an Oliver Solberg, James Baldwin decider for this semi-final.
Yeah, that's a tantalising prospect. Look at the focus from Romain Grosjean, how his eyes are going from far left to far right. Amazing how important vision is, and Grosjean's gone round. But, you know, Grosjean could still get into the final here with James Baldwin. So he needs to keep his cool, because he could still be part of a winning team.
Yeah, and he knows that. He knows that full well, although he'll be disappointed with how that race went. You know, he knows they've still got a chance. So Ollie will stick in the car as the fastest of the Norway drivers. James Baldwin should be now logging into the server, getting into the lobby and getting ready for his chance for the decider in this semi-final to get through to the final of the Nations Cup coming up shortly.
Yeah, and with all the experience that Oliver Solberg has doing his own World Cup and doing so many hours on the sim, this could be a tough one for James Baldwin. We know that Baldwin's fast in the sim, and I'm just curious to see how this one goes. Could be an upset.
Yeah, Oliver's the kind of generation that blurs, and the skill level that blurs the boundaries that I was talking about earlier between real racing driver and online, because he's done so many hours. Admittedly, as he said in the interview we did, almost all of that has been rallying. So he set up his own World Cup on Dirt Rally 2.0, and loads, thousands, tens of thousands of people have been competing in his cup. That's rallying. You know, this is short bursts, time, you know, not time trial. It's not against the clock. This is against another driver, which, apart from when he's raced for real in rallycross, is not his. It's not his métier.
No, exactly. Very, very exciting to see. So a little bit of a wait. Oh, at least Ollie's in the car, so he's in the sim. It's doesn't need to go anywhere. Just needs to log out and log in again. Not quite sure why that takes so much time, but we're getting there. And then we will go to the other side of the group. You can still see that Sweden, Timmy Hansen and Kristoffersson there on the left-hand side, representing. Not quite sure why Benito's still there. But hello, Benito. Thank you for joining us and just following.
I love the fact that he's got his nameplate from walking out at the Race of Champions in the Foro Sol in Mexico City, which was an amazing moment. Really special. Nice wave there from Felipe Albuquerque, top right as well. Jan Kristoffersson, the Iceman, chilling there over on the left. Timmy Hansen, top left. Hello, mouthing to us. I wonder what Antonio Felix da Costa is listening to, what music he's got in his cans to keep him chilled and motivated between. Maybe he can stick it on the group or put it on on social media, what his favorite race prep tune is. But yeah, we should be waiting for Oliver Solberg. Ollie's ready. That's just a question of what's happening behind the scenes.
Here we go. Oliver Solberg versus James Baldwin. I think this might be tighter than you think. Little bit of just didn't quite get the slide going there for Solberg in the white machine. A little bit too much grip. The car straightened up on him when he wanted to just slide it around. And on that big, long, fast stretch down to this hairpin, Baldwin has a slight advantage, but it is only a slight advantage right now.
And it must be very difficult not to get spooked when you catch a glimpse of your competitor over on the other lane and then lose them again. And you're never quite sure. You're like a TIE fighter trying to shake off an X-Wing fighter in a space battle. This is very much on the Earth. in the volcanic Canary Island of Gran Canaria.
That second bit of tarmac there, and now the blast back towards the arch. Baldwin is ahead, Solberg 1.8 back. So I just wonder how much James Baldwin was sweating from this one. Nice and tidy. And it does look good. It does look good for the All-Stars to go through and eliminate the Solbergs at this late stage of the competition. You may well have said that the Solbergs should be favoured off-road, but Baldwin and Grosjean will go through to the final. And Ollie had no answer to the pace of Baldwin off-road. Amazing.
And James Baldwin's got to be happy that he didn't take up the offer of that fictional date he told us he was going to have instead of doing the Nations Cup. He stayed on board and he's made it through to the final. And, you know, that was a good effort there from Oliver Solberg, but just proving again that time spent in the game, time spent under these conditions is absolutely crucial to getting good results. And well done to James Baldwin. And of course, that means that Romain Grosjean makes it through to the final. Someone who is not going to progress any further in tonight's proceedings, but we are so pleased that he stayed with us, is Benito Guerra. Benito, who should be joining us now. Benito, it's great to see you, my friend. It's been a long time. Well, I saw you back in Mexico in March, which seems like a lifetime ago. Thank you for joining us tonight. How has been your evening?
Thank you very much, guys. And Neil, it was a very difficult race for me. I think I need more practice in the racing sim. I couldn't find the right pace to be in the top drivers. I'm missing the real rock, and I will try to do my best in the next real rock, the next real race of champions. But I think it was an amazing idea to have this virtual race of champions with all these amazing drivers. Thanks, Frederick, and all the Race of Champions team for this opportunity. And stay home and please take care. And hope to see you soon, really, really soon, guys.
Yeah, we'd like to see you soon as well, because of course you are the reigning Race of Champions, Champion of Champions title holder. And did you expect that you would continue to be the reigning champion for much longer than anyone has held the title before? You know, we don't know when we'll get to race for real again. So you've got a long tenure as the champion.
Yeah, it has been a long reigning Race of Champion winning award, whatever you call, and it was a very, very good experience to win in my home event in 2019, and I'm ready to fight for my title again in the next Race of Champions. I was just asking Frederick if there was any idea of the next real Race of Champions, but I still don't have answer, and we will be ready to compete maybe later this year or the beginning of 2021. Yeah, I think we will need to get back in the real cars again.
Definitely. It'll be great to see you again, Benito. And although this evening didn't go exactly your way, we're very grateful that you joined us, and we hope to see you again very soon. Just quickly, when will you be rallying again? Do you know yet? When are you going out in the real world to get to compete properly?
Yes, we will be starting rallying in Mexico the last part of July with a rally called Chihuahua Express. It's in the north of the country. It's a 3-day event. So we will get back on track, and then I will fly to Europe, maybe to Spain, August, September, to prepare with the national races in Rally de Llanes and Rally Princesa de Asturias. Those rallies we will make it to prepare for the last part of the season. And I think our team, Race 7, will take us to the Rally of Catalunya, the World Championship event. And we will start to prepare 2021, because it has been a hell of a year, very different, and we missed racing like all the guys here in their teams trying to do the best.
Okay, well, look, we miss it too. Thank you very much, Benito. Suerte, and see you in the real world, maybe in Spain later in the year. Cheers.
I hope to see you soon, Neil. Thank you very much, and take care. Stay home.
What a gent. It's great to speak to Benito Guerra there. And of course, absolutely, I remember really clearly when he beat Tom Christensen in the final in Mexico. You know, it was a brilliant performance. You always want a home driver to be buoyed on the shoulders of his home crowd, and that was the classic moment.
Amazing with not a huge amount of experience. I think he came to Race of Champions in 2012, so he did have a year of experience. But to be able to do that, as you say, and with so many important people, a great crowd, the Foro Sol, just a magical place. One of those special moments, Neil, that stays with you from Race of Champions that you never really forget.
Definitely, yeah. And I've been following his career since I think when I first went to Rally Mexico back in the 2004, 2005, and then he was Production Cup champion. He's a very talented driver, but let's turn our attention to the other side of the semi-finals.
Oh, and that looks like an issue from Kristoffersson again. We saw him have an issue in the last race. He's obviously got a problem with his rig at some kind because he just... Gear selection, perhaps? It looks like he's got throttle, but his rig is not working. And
as it says across,
Antonio
he's disconnected from the server.
So Felix da Costa's going to get by here.
They were told in the driver's briefing that if they have a problem, once the lights have gone green, then that's it. There's nothing we can do about it. So a real shame for Johan, which means all the work to be done is in the hands of Timmy Hansen when he races against Felipe Albuquerque next, because this one is very much in the bag for Antonio. But Antonio does have to put in a good time because that might count.
In this knockout phase, it shouldn't matter.
Oh no, you're right. You're right.
Because
it's knockout.
We have two drivers, so absolutely, Timmy Hansen will have to win against.
If he wanted
to. Timmy Hansen will have to win against Felipe Albuquerque. It's the only way. A nice bit of testing for Antonio Felix da Costa to get a feel for what could well be a final. Because if Kristoffersson still has an issue with his rig,
yeah, it would be good to find out what's been going on with Johan, if anyone has contact with him, because that's 2 consecutive races where he's taken the start but not gone any further. So it'd be nice to know if he what the problem is.
Yeah, weird problem, because it just it looks like a mechanical problem, doesn't it? It looks like an actual real car mechanical problem.
Mm-hmm. Are you being bothered by an insect there, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Probably on the 720 you can't see. Right, Timmy Hansen versus Felipe Albuquerque. A must-win for Team Sweden here on the left-hand side. If he doesn't win, Portugal go through to the final to face the All-Stars. A daunting prospect for sure. Or we go through to a knockout with Hansen versus Felipe Albuquerque. I feel like we saw that match up before, but I've got too many pieces of paper to get lost. Now, that's a good shot. That's when you've got a crossover with one car over the top of the other. It does mean it's close. Oh, it's a mistake, though. Mistake on the left-hand side from Felipe Albuquerque. He's lost the car and handed the advantage to Timmy Hansen here. Up until that point, it looked incredibly close between the two of them. Now, 4 seconds the gap.
So after a disaster for Johan Kristoffersson, it looks like Timmy Hansen has managed to keep Sweden's chances in with a Rock Nations Cup potential to get through to the final, but he will have to drive again against da Costa.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of corners left for Timmy Hansen. These drivers love driving this track. They really, really love it. It's a challenge, but now the RX car is doing 130s. We estimated these races to be 2 minutes long when we started this process. So the drivers are getting used to it, and Felipe Albuquerque's frustrated. Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's not happy. A little bit of muttering and swearing in Portuguese, I think, there, while Timmy Hansen had a little kind of subtle high five at the side there, presumably from Kevin. But it looks like his parents, Suzanne and Kenneth, have come home, because we found out earlier that the boys had been left on their own for their weekend sim racing, because the parents, the sort of team bosses, had gone out for the day. So it looks like the parents are back, which is good to see, keeping an eye on the boys. So yeah, Timmy Hansen saves the day for Sweden. And it's up to Antonio Felix da Costa to try and keep Portugal in this to get through to the final.
Yes. An All-Stars versus Portugal, or All-Stars versus Sweden? That is the question. Either way, if it's a Portugal win, then there's nobody there that has kind of a rallycross advantage. The only advantage there is that James Baldwin is kind of the favourite, really, to carry the team through.
Yeah, Baldwin's brilliant on the rallycross in the rallycross car. Do you remember in Miami when the entire field of drivers got on top of that rallycross car, and you could see Andreas Eriksson just kind of looking, was the suspension going to hold up as the RX light car just sank? But it was a great moment. It's one of those classic Race of Champions moments where everyone comes together to make an event just that little bit more special.
And that was another of our weird and wonderful formats, wasn't it? Because that was America versus the world. And we just put loads of more races. So many American drivers in Miami took part that we put a whole competition where, a bit like the Ryder Cup. So when we were talking earlier about different bits of formats that we've done over the years, there's another one.
But we still haven't got as far as thumb wrestling, Ben. I'll leave it up to you to moot that as an idea to Frederick, see what he says.
I mean, it can't be very expensive to put on. You only need a small stadium, no cars.
Tiny stadium. We got that big. Anyway, so here we go. We should be getting ready for the tiebreaker, the decider between Sweden and Portugal, to see who goes through into the final of the Rock Nations Cup.
Yes, absolutely. Philippe Albuquerque will be watching his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa, who has been pretty strong. Maybe Antonio will move his expertise onto the Assetto Corsa platforms. He's been very strong this evening. But he's got to take on a rallycross driver in a rallycross car on a mixed surface. He's in the white car, Felix da Costa in the white, Hansen in the black. Oh, taking liberties with the bank there, nearly putting the car on the roof, like we saw so many times in the real world Race of Champions when they raced at Gran Canaria. We saw some big incidents for exactly that. A little bit too much curb hopping, and the cars go upside down.
All I can say is I hope someone's professionally in photo mode here, capturing moments like that, because I'd love to get a still of Antonio Felix da Costa fully, all four wheels off the air, sideways on the verge of rolling it. That'll be a great still.
It was him that rolled it a little bit earlier on, wasn't it? I think just before the start finishing line, we saw him properly destroy the car. So Hansen now with a 1.3 second advantage. And a frustration for Felix da Costa, because he'll see in the cockpit view, he'll be able to see the other car. He'll know that he's behind.
Still close, though. Still looks close, at least. And of course, there's the outside loop of the hairpin.
Yeah, keeping him honest, definitely. But it's weird, isn't it? Because it's the outside. And still a little bit ahead. Felix da Costa coming to the line then. It's going to be close. Hansen does it, but only 0.4 of a second. And Hansen has put Team Sweden through. And it's a one-horse race, isn't it? Kristoffersson with no victories and no partaking. And Romain Grosjean with no victories. Being held up by Timmy Hansen, James Baldwin. Hang on a second. We've seen that race before.
Yeah. So really all we need to do is just get Hansen versus Baldwin. We almost...
I hope we have a Hansen... how does that work? Can we have a Hansen Baldwin in race 1 and then Grosjean and Kristoffersson in race 2? I don't know how. I can't remember who's... It depends on who is driver 1 and driver 2 allocated.
Well, then
and that's where
above my pay grade.
Yeah.
It's just a little recap. It's 5-9 here in the UK, so it's 5-10 where you are, Central European time. It's going dark here, and we are now moving into the final of the Rock Nations Cup, the Race of Champions Virtual 2020. Thanks to everyone who's stuck with us today, watching us right from the beginning to the end. If you've done that, put a message on socials using the hashtag RockVirtual to tell us that you've been with us all the way. But basically, the whole team, everyone's pulled this together from all around the world to make this happen. So we are about to get going now. We were worried that there was a problem with Johan Kristoffersen's equipment. It looked like it was a technical thing on the car, but there may be a problem with his rig, which we probably could have told him from afar. We could have diagnosed that. But yes, his sim rig seems to be malfunctioning, which may mean that we do get for the Rock Nations Cup a kind of one-man attack from Timmy Hansen.
Yeah, so Timmy will do both, much like if you remember Sebastian Vettel in Miami. And Travis as well did it all himself.
Yep, so Sebastian Vettel did it once in Miami, and Travis Pastrana has done it as well. So it'll be Timmy Hansen on his own having to represent Team Sweden against James Baldwin and Roman Grosjean of Team All-Stars.
Right, we saw this in our ultimate battle, Baldwin versus Hansen, and Baldwin was the stronger. Has Hansen found any more experience since he last took on Baldwin? Baldwin in the white machine has a slight advantage coming into the corner. Oh no, and Timmy Hansen's gone too deep into the hairpin. He may even be stuck there. And Hansen is going to lose this race just a little too hot. And that's okay though, Timmy, because you still have to take on Roman Grosjean. And then if you beat Roman Grosjean, you take on James Baldwin again for another rematch. So all is not lost. Baldwin just now on a parade.
These are valuable extra meters of practice for James Baldwin. You know, even though he's already very good in this car on this track, every single second he can drive it in anger will just give him an advantage if he does have to step back in and race in the decider.
Great to be able to watch how James Baldwin does it. Looking at the feedback he's putting into the sim. The feedback he's getting from the sim as well. I did notice that Benito Guerra had a motion sim, but Baldwin in a static, a 1:28.9, that's a fast lap. Timmy Hansen did a 30 last time through. A 28.9 is going to be a hard one to beat as we go on to Hansen versus Grosjean next.
And he's, Baldwin, every time he does that circuit, every time he does that track, he'll be bringing those tenths of a second off each, microseconds off each corner. He'll be learning it, improving like a machine.
Absolutely. And you would expect to see him progress past Grosjean in this next heat. But anything can happen, and it's very, very hard to find the limit here. And he'll want to push hard. He'll want to do a really fast time against Grosjean to find out if he can compete with Baldwin.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, Ben, that this is a real test of how that was obviously a mistake by Timmy, and he'll be kicking himself, but he's got to put that behind him, get rid of the red mist, reset, and he's very good at that. But he needs to. He'll want that extra test against James Baldwin just to see if he can finally overcome what has been tonight his main nemesis.
You should pull his brother in. He's knocking about, isn't he? Stick him in. Probably done no practice. Right, you're in the final. Off you go.
Well, I mean, I'm interested to see if Kevin has been doing any time on this build, because they're sort of neighbouring rigs. Maybe he's had a little go and given sort of Timmy a couple of races just to keep him match fresh. But they've been very busy across a number of different disciplines, including the World Rallycross Esports Series, which they both competed in and were successful in this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing how the whole of the motorsport world has adopted sim racing. And I really hope as we move back into the normality, if you like, that sim racing won't be forgotten and that we will continue to have real drivers partake. I've had the chance to speak to a few of them, such as Bruno Spengler, on a chat show I do. And, he says, I'm not stopping. This is something that I really enjoy. And whilst I might not have the time because I'll be traveling to events and racing events and testing, I still want to do this, perhaps in the off seasons, perhaps in the winters. So we may see some virtual championships crop up over the winter when we go into the winter of this year. It's a great way for these drivers to still stay fresh and enjoy competition. I tell you what, Grosjean's made a good start here. Grosjean is slightly ahead of Timmy Hansen. Grosjean's in a white car, Timmy in the black, but a little bit too much curb hopping there, I think, from Grosjean on one of the first of those corners, and just lost it a little bit. Tries to slide the car in sideways, and it starts to bog down. He's doing his best, giving it a shot.
So this is all or nothing for Timmy Hansen, single-handedly having to deal with the fates of Team Sweden after the sad problems for Johan Kristoffersen's sim rig. Roman Grosjean does not look very happy.
2.7 back from Timmy Hansen. A pretty hard competitor to come up against. Roman should not feel aggrieved at all, being thrown in not only into this with very little practice and his mind on certain and very different things the last couple of hours, but then to be participating in a final on a rallycross track with a rallycross driver. It's really, really hard for him, and credit for giving it a shot. Now I'm curious to see what time Hansen does. Remember, it was a 28.9 from Baldwin in the last race. Over the line, a 31.2. I think Grosjean can still win this.
Yeah, so we may well see. That's a great result for Timmy Hansen, a smile. So he's happy, single-handedly representing the team to get the team through to a decider. But we may well see Roman be a winner for Team All-Stars, despite not actually being able to win his race in the final.
And sometimes drivers will go through a Nations Cup without taking a single victory and still win, even if they do have a teammate. We talked about Travis and Vettel taking Vettel won in Miami, having not had a teammate. But there are plenty of people who've been teammates and always lost, and progressed. I think Nations Cup GB, maybe in the Olympic Stadium. GB won that, and I think one of their drivers didn't win a race. I can't remember if it was Prio or Plato, but one of them.
So now we have the decider.
It was always going to be that Baldwin looked in a strong position with his teammate. And so,
I'm disappointed that we didn't get the chance to see Johan Kristoffersen sort of deliver in the rallycross car on that Gran Canaria circuit, because he's such a talented operator. It would have been really nice to see, and I know he'll be disappointed as well. It's the classic racing driver situation. If you let yourself down, then you can deal with that. But if your kit lets you down, then you're like, I did not get to show what my true potential was. So Johan, if you're watching, thank you very much for taking part, and we're sorry that that happened, but hopefully you'll be watching closely as Timmy Hansen, your old rival from rallycross terms, is single-handedly trying to win the event for you.
Thanks to our boss, Frederick Johnson, for confirming that it was Andy Prio who won all the races. And I think it was Plato, his teammate, who didn't win any of the races in 2015 Olympic Stadium. So I was getting there, pretty close.
So it was Vettel and Hulkenberg that they beat. They beat.
Yeah. Team Germany have always been strong, and Team Germany could have been represented here with René Rast and Nils Naujoks. Nils missing out by 0.06 of a second to James Baldwin in that final. And now this is the final of the Nations Cup. All-Stars versus Team Sweden. James Baldwin versus Timmy Hansen. No jump start. First objective. Baldwin in the white machine on the outside. Timmy Hansen in the black machine on the inside. Has a slight advantage through that first corner as it is the tighter inside line. But then it's slightly more sinuous for the black car as you go down towards this first hairpin. So That is where we see the black car just fall back slightly, but then less distance travelled on the inside. Oh, Hansen's not quite got that right, didn't quite send it. That was where he made the mistake against Baldwin on the last of our heats when these two met. They've met each other a couple of times. And you know what? Credit for Timmy Hansen to really putting up a fight here. Baldwin's got the inside line back onto the tarmac to complete the first lap, and the gap is 1.2 seconds. We could go down to, I don't know, there's definitely a stagger in this track. There's definitely the advantage to the inside line and to James Baldwin. So it could be much closer than it feels right at this second. That sinuous line now for Baldwin on the inside, the hairpin. Done well there, carried a lot more momentum than Hansen was able to do. And now the return back towards the arch. We are at the end of our evening here for Rock Virtual 2020. The Nations Cup could go to Team All-Stars. Baldwin with just one corner remaining, and he has done it. Himself and Romain Grosjean, Timmy Hansen missing out, and Baldwin gives the camera a kiss. What a star of Race of Champions James Baldwin has become. Credit, though, for Timmy Hansen. I think a mistake right in the last corner. He threw everything at it.
Yeah, he really did. And Timmy has had a very busy day today. Nice to see him give a thumbs up to the camera there and a big smile because, he's really put in the effort today. He's been with us right from the very beginning of this evening. And earlier on today, he, took the lead in the World Rallycross Esports Series with one round to go on the 12th of July. So, yes, a huge effort from Timmy. Thank you very much, Taksamika, for being part of this evening. But we do have a Nations Cup virtual winner for 2020, and it's not a nation as such.
I know, it's because the Prios were racing together. We didn't have a third Brit to pair with James Baldwin. So who else to go for than the Formula One representative? Made sense to me. Grosjean's won without winning.
Okay, we should be able to speak to Romain Grosjean and James Baldwin together. This is the chance for them to speak to each other as well as us. So first of all, Romain, if you're there, can you unmute your microphone? And James, if you guys wanted to use this opportunity to speak to each other about how well you've done this evening, because you are the Nations Cup winners, the All-Stars.
Awesome, isn't it? Yeah. Good job to Romain kind of jumping in last minute. It's not easy. I jumped on last night, but I've had like a day to kind of get used to stuff. Obviously, Romain hasn't had that. And obviously, condolences to his child for getting hurt as well. That's got to play in the back of your mind where you're driving. So, but yeah, together we pulled through. We got the W.
You got the win. I didn't do much. Sorry, mate.
We win and lose together, man.
Well, you won for us. Thank you. I mean, it was an easy jump back in, but it's always fun. I like the Race of Champion for the atmosphere, and obviously we're all home on our simulators, but it's great that we get to see it and to meet everyone. And thanks, Frederick, for organizing it. You always find a solution or something that we can have fun. So can't wait that we all go together back onto the normal one.
Yeah, but for now, you can officially, put another virtual trophy in the virtual trophy cabinet because despite not necessarily representing a nation, you two are the Nations Cup winners 2020.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, the kids still love to play with the big trophy that I got from the Rock 2012. It's home. It's the biggest trophy I have home, and the kids, they love it. So, I mean, they would be happy to know that James won it for us.
No, it's good though. Like, obviously the sim racing's boomed over the last few months, and it seems like real racing's going to come back, which is really good. So I can't wait to watch that. Good luck to Romain next weekend in Austria. And it's going to be awesome.
Well, look, all the very best to both of you, and thank you very much for taking your time, especially Romain, for what has been clearly a very strange and difficult day for you. And, for both of you, as you pick up more competition over the next few weeks, good luck, and thanks again. Congratulations.
Cheers, Neil. Cheers, Ben.
So there we go. What was brilliant about that is the final of all the finals we've had this evening was a brilliant grudge match. And that's the beauty of it. Sometimes you enter an event like this and you kind of, who are going to be the stars? Who's going to rise to the top? And the fact that we got a chance to see Hansen versus Baldwin several times during the course of the evening. Sharing the spoils as well was really, really good to see.
And I really love that camaraderie between the real drivers and the sim drivers. We've seen it a lot in different formats of racing over the last couple of months, where the real drivers leaning on the sim drivers for help. And you have to say, Roma, great to make the effort to come and be part of it. And James delivering the W, as he says. What a star of Race of Champions he's been. And I think Timmy Hansen now is on the invite list for the next real one.
Definitely. I guess we can bring this evening to a close. There's no further business to do apart from to thank everybody involved in Race of Champions Virtual 2020, the guys behind the scenes at Motorsport Games, everybody who's been working really hard on this, to Frederick, to you, Ben, to all of the drivers who've given up their time and, in some cases, their pride, has taken a hit. But they've all done it for the spirit of Race of Champions, for which we're very, very grateful.
Absolutely, Neil. Thank you very much for your time as well, having done a marathon day as a sim commentator.
Well, it's been a joy. Until real racing gets going, which of course is happening in some series this week, we will bring this period of racing at home, virtual sim racing, to an end with this, which has been the grand finale, the Race of Champions Virtual 2020. Thanks to you for watching. Of course, keep across everything social media wise, Race of Champions, across all the different social medias. And I think quite a few of our drivers have been streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. So there'll be plenty of other stories to delve into after this live, to go back and watch the whole thing from other people's perspective. Will be very, very interesting indeed. Thanks to everybody involved. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you very soon. Be excellent to each other.